Start at 7:08. I'd like to welcome you to the Tuesday, July 27th, 2021 workshop meeting of Verona Borough Council. We'll start with the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Mr. Mayor, please.
Dr. Carpenter,
Present.
Mr. Matlin,
Present.
Mr. Warren,
Present.
Elbow,
Present.
Ms. Showalter,
Present.
Ms. Provenza,
Present.
Mr. Suchovich,
Here.
and Mayor Recupero. I'm here.
All right, thank you. Thanks, everybody, for your patience. Welcome. We're going to start with Rhea Homa, who's going to present some information on the native planting project by the Veterans Wall. Hi, Rhea.
Hi, thank you for having me and allowing me to speak. Hello, Council. Let's just start in, I guess. We have a couple new faces on Council since I last presented this, so I'm going to share more information than what I otherwise would need to. It says host disabled participant screen sharing.
Oh, let me fix that. Okay, you should be good now.
Great, thank you very much. All right, so I am here to talk about the native green space near Verona's Veterans Wall. This green space will turn a somewhat unruly area with eroding issues into a beautiful and beneficial asset to our community. This presentation builds off of the native green space project that was first proposed in April. And since then, our project has grown in terms of supporters, both financially as well as those interested in helping to volunteer with this project. We've gained support of contacts from Pennsylvania Heritage, Natural Heritage Program, and actually a geologist that lives in Oakmont as well, they've both been instrumental in helping to devise a plan for the steep and shaly area. So it'll turn this steep, shaly, unruly area that has a lot of erosion issues into a beautiful and beneficial asset to the community, as well as the local ecosystem. This project celebrates Verona with vibrant yellow and purple tones that will be eye-catching for those traveling along Allegheny River Boulevard between Verona and Oakmont. Here I just talk about the beauty, soil erosion, how it will help minimize that, increase biodiversity and the ecological benefits that go along with that. It will be low maintenance. The flowers are perennial and self-seeding. They're also very tolerant of our climate and rain patterns. They evolved, after all, in this area. So they are just prime for it. And also, we hope to be completely funded by direct donations from generous neighbors, as well as the Garden Club. I want to share some pictures of what it this isn't what it currently looks like. These were pictures that I took off of Google Maps. I do have pictures in here, however, that do show also what it looks like currently. These were just really easy for me to use to measure and to modify with my, as I'm doing here. As requested last time I presented this, there was interest in including the area to the right of the steps. So as you can see, I also included that area. And here is a picture of that area. This is what it looks like today, actually. And this is what we are hoping to do with it. So if you notice between the steps and that tree, we use that tree as kind of a marker of where this will end, and that is 15.5 feet. How we have it angled toward the sidewalk, we just simply felt that it looked better that way. But all of this is, up for discussion, but this is what the group had come to a conclusion that we liked. I'm going to go ahead and describe the natives. In August, we had these first ones: Blazing Star, Aromatic Asters, Purple Coneflowers, Partridge Pea, Black-Eyed Susan, and Lance Leaf Coreopsis. And there are pictures of each of these. Those were included in our initial plan. Since then, we've also decided to add yarrow, which I have a note here why we described. Oh, it just has a really good root system and is very tolerant for shale like this, as well as bunch grass like blue stem. And the nice thing about adding blue stem is that it has a super deep root system, and then it also gives structure and understory for the taller shelly flowers. See, and then the ones underneath: woodland sunflower, tall coreopsis, blue lobelia, purple bee balm, and purple mountain mint were plants that were recommended to us shadier area. So in the picture, I still have the purple flowers and I believe they're asters, and the black-eyed Susans. I just simply don't have the correct pictures to go in there, but they do require a slightly different type of flower. I think ones that are tolerant of more shade. So that is what we are currently looking at by adding that right side. Continuing on, I have some pictures that I would like to share with you all. The total area that has been described is 1,500 square feet. To the left of the steps, it's 1,140 square feet. To the right of the steps is 456 square feet or so. It is very steep and made of delicate shale, with some sediment and added dirt. There's currently a variety of native and non-native plants. They are mostly non-aggressive. We're going to talk about phase 1 currently, but there's also a phase 2 in which the grass area and a 3-foot perimeter from the sidewalks will become native ground cover. The ornamental trees will remain. If you can see these two pictures on the leftmost, there is like an outline of the area. Google Maps is very helpful in helping me figure out the total area. And so you can just see where I have both of those outlined. Next slide. This is still the area left of the steps. Again, it's made of brittle shale, and this makes it a difficult area to landscape. You can see garden fabric that was added previously, and it's currently kind of sliding down the hill. And as it does that, it creates pockets of empty space, which makes it even more difficult for the soil to adhere to the area and just causes more soil runoff. It also prevents nutrients from reaching the ground beneath, and it hinders the movement of important microorganisms in the soil's microbiome that are needed to keep an area healthy. So it is our recommendation that we will remove this. We are expecting to see shale underneath that. The lower picture on the left, on the right side of that picture, you can see where there's garden fabric and soil added on top. On the left side of that, you can see where there is bare shale showing. And so we are expecting something similar to that bare shale to be underneath that black fabric. Let's continue. Another issue is poison ivy. This is the area left of the steps, and I have circled where the poison ivy is located within the area that we're talking about working with. It's located there in the upper right corner of the area. It's recommended that to be removed by hand in the fall. The reason why you don't want to remove it in the spring is because spring vines don't have all the leaves, so it's very difficult to identify what you're touching, and it's easier to accidentally become in contact with it. It is recommended that you hand pull and not mow, because mowing will aerosolize the oil, and that can cause complications for people as well who are sensitive. Poison ivy is actually a native plant, and it is not competitive. It does not overtake an area if there are other natives that are well suited for that location around it. It won't it won't compete for the area that is already spoken for. This weekend, Anna also educated us about the important role that this native plant poison ivy provides, important winter food source for birds. The ivy bears berries, which are high in protein and fat to provide crucial food source in the scarce winter months. We've discussed all these issues, and we are recommending to allow a small area to remain to support our local birds and plants, and plant other natives around it so it does not continue to spread. Continuing on, first steps. Our first steps are to weed whack the area. The second is to cover it with black plastic. This will require us to secure the black plastic at the top with stones, and then we'll roll it down the hill, and then we'll secure it at the bottom, cut it off, and then again, start it up at the top, secure it with stones, let it roll down to the bottom, secure it with stones. And anywhere along the way that it may be puckering or too loose or something like that, we will use garden staples to secure it into what's underneath. You leave that black plastic on for 6 weeks, coupled with a hot summer sun. The professionals who saw this area determined that this is enough time to kill the vegetation that is underneath, primarily because it's not very aggressive. So that should be sufficient time. Number 4 is to plant plugs. Plugs are a small plant that have are focused on having a really nice root system whenever you receive them. So they're going to be small plants, but what's underneath is really important and what we want. Those roots are going to help anchor the soil while the other seeds come up. So these are designed for larger and better root systems in general. Next, we will sow the seeds. The ideal time to do this is late September or early October, which we are right on schedule for. This time frame, it's not too hot, it's not too dry, and it provides enough time for plants to become established in the ground before frost. Next, we will cover with burlap. This is an erosion and bird deterrent, but it still allows water to reach the soil and hold it there. Wattles. Oh, I should have gotten a picture of wattles. It's okay, I can paint a picture for you. They are a tube. They are a burlap tube that is filled with straw. And the idea is that you take these wattles and you use stakes to secure them. I believe the stakes are like 18 inches long. And you secure these. And we're going to do that along the base and then at midpoints across the slope. This will help keep any erosion that does occur, keep it on the site, not wash away. And then lastly, just let it grow and it will naturally die back in the winter. And then in the spring, it will grow and bloom in warmer months. And it will continue to do that year after year since, of course, it is self-seeding. Phase 2, if we get this far, will be next year. Hopefully, we will create a border around the native area. So this low ground cover will provide a buffer between the sidewalk and tall plants that may want to droop. It also shows that this is an intentional area. It's not going to be in full bloom year round. There's going to be time in the spring as the plants are regrowing for the year before they bloom that it's just going to look like tall greenery, and we don't want anybody to mistake this for unwanted weeds. This is very intentional, and adding this border, which we are hoping to have it be a flowering and berrying border, will just look great and make sure that people know, hey, this is intentional. And lastly, we want to add some educational signs. So the signs that I have shown here are just examples, and they start at $30 a piece. Ideally, it would be wonderful to have signs that list the specific plants that we have, within our garden and about the species, the insects and butterflies that they benefit. But of course, this costs more money. So let's talk about money. Here's where we are. This budget is much different from our previous budget. Our budget before was $115, which included the Ernst seeds. And that was about it. If you notice the immediate costs under expenses, I have it highlighted in that like cream yellow color. And the first item there is flowers and bunch grass seeds from Ernst Seeds. Previously it was $115. Now with the added area, it is up to $210. Immediately, we would also have to purchase flower plugs. We don't need these seeds and plugs immediately, but we need to get our order in immediately so that they can be ready for us in 6 weeks. A place that we're looking into is North Creek Nurseries. A flat of 50 of these plugs would be $68.75. It's something that we've talked about doing. I am not 100% certain that this is what we are going to do. We do not need 50 of them, and it would be 50 of one type. And this area is 4 or 5, actually 6 different types, 3 of each color, different types of flowers. So this is on the table for us to purchase, but A, we need to find a location that 100% can do this for us, and B, just, you have to buy a lot of them if it's from a wholesaler. Okay, so continuing on, and black plastic is something else that will be an immediate cost, and that is about $90. And once the black plastic is sitting for 6 weeks, excuse me, we will use our burlap and the garden staples. And of course, I have the prices there as well. The burlap was $185 and the garden stakes are $30, the garden staples. Lastly, we have those wattles that I described and stakes to secure the wattles. These are very helpful. I think that they would be very beneficial for this project, but they are not necessary to the project. If we had money for these, we would need it within 6 weeks. Those wattles are quite expensive, $368, and the stakes are another $40 or so. So what this ultimately means, if you go down to the bottom, is that with wattles, it would be $993. If you look up top to what we have incoming, you will see that we've already received $375 in individual donations, and the Garden Club has promised us $300 as well for this project. We also have opportunities for community fundraising, such as 50/50s at the farmers market and a raffle basket at Battle in the Borough. So we are $318 short if we include the wattles and if we include the plugs and all the goodies that go with it. However, if we do without the wattles, the total comes to $584.13, in which case we are fully funded at this point. Again, that does not include phase 2, which would include the border and the signs, but this is for this season, what we're looking at. Bottom line, these I just had left over from last time's collaboration between Garden Club and Sea Green. We have a lot of individuals interested. I think we had about 12 people at our site visit and planning session, and that was just wonderful. A lot of ecological benefits, low cost to the borough, low maintenance. Oh, I have 0 cost to the borough as well. Because it is primarily seed, we can do this at a cheaper cost than purchasing potted flowers. And of course, it is very beautiful. Are there any questions? I'm sure that there's probably going to be some sort of discussion about how we're going to make this work, who's going to be doing the work. And I would like to just explain that Nancy has been helpful to help us find a waiver that Verona Borough previously created. So we're hoping that we can use that in order to do some of the work here. And I believe that she's also discussed this project with AJ to see how he feels about volunteers helping in this area. And from what I I believe what I heard was that he's all for it. He supports this and is okay with volunteers helping to make this happen.
Mhm. So just to clarify further, Rhea, if that's okay. The waiver is something that was created a couple of years ago when we were having a lot of kids from Pitt with the litter getting project. So we were just able to find that, and I think that should be fine to use.
It's the waiver of liability for the borough.
Right.
For people volunteering.
Yep. And AJ had no problems with volunteers working on this. You know, from a, I don't know, union standpoint or whatever, he doesn't have any issues with volunteers doing the weed whacking or whatever work you want to do there. I did have one question. In your financial part of this at the end, do you know how much of the money you need immediately? I know some things are
Yes.
more immediate than other things.
Yeah, let's do the math here. $210, $90, that's $369 would be the immediate cost.
369?
Would be the immediate cost.
Okay, so you have the money for that currently,
Yes, we
and
do.
then it'll give you the opportunity to do more fundraising and so on to cover what you might if you want to include the waddles.
Exactly, absolutely.
Okay, great. So I appreciate your presentation and all the work you put into doing all that. Thank you very much. And unless anybody else has any questions about this.
I have a question.
Okay.
Rhea, can you talk to us a little bit about how you plan to water your native garden?
Good question.
Oh, sure. Is that Trish? Hello, Councilwoman Trish. It's actually the main reason why we chose the fall is because it is a more wet season. And if you look out, you will see all sorts of flowers going to seed in the fall, because this is the best time for seeds to fall and begin to sprout for next year. So all of those plants do it without any human interaction, and lo and behold, this site will as well. We did discuss some options. We're aware that there is water available kind of near-ish the site on that block. There's been some talk about, maybe if we get funds for a 65-gallon water buffalo, and people were certain that we would be able to find soaker hose for free. People just, so-and-so has that, or my mom has that, and she was going to get rid of it. Put requests out there to the community to see if people have something like that, like a soaker hose. If we wanted to go that route, we would put the soaker hose. Let me go to our steps. First steps. The soaker hose would be added after number 5. So after we plant plugs, after we sow seeds, we would lay some soaker hose and then cover it up with burlap. And that would help the water stay retained underneath the burlap, not evaporate off. But again, we're not expecting to need that, and none of the professionals that we spoke with thought we would need it either.
Rhea, over by the cannon there is water. Just to let you know.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. That's great to know that there's water nearby. A soaker hose would be preferable, just to clarify, a soaker hose would be preferable to just a regular hose with a spray nozzle, because the spray nozzle, it's very easy to have a lot of force coming down and washing this off. If we used something like a water buffalo, which again isn't necessary, but if we did, it would just use gentle gravity through the hose, and it wouldn't be as forceful.
But Rhea, where would you have the water source for the soaker hose?
That would be from the water buffalo that people were talking about getting.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions, anybody?
I've got a comment. I think it's a really good use of the space and a good reflection of our community.
Newest council member up here, I would agree with this being something that we should do, and it's nominal cost, but I think we could probably match the efforts with some of what you see on High Street, where the two guardrails that are yellow and the steps and the handrail possibly being painted, or the curb. So my next question was, if we're to offer support like that in a phase 2, has this been explored by Senate Engineering for possible funding, that we are improving handrails, guardrails for the street, or improvements to a park that we possibly get funding to cover these next year for phase 2?
Not yet, but we certainly can do that.
Because I think if our efforts as council or the municipality could actually, if you go back to, I think it was your third slide, you can see the top of the steps on the right, there's the guardrails so cars don't come off the street.
Mhm.
If we make improvements for infrastructure, we might be able to qualify for funding that we could then put our touch on it, and then have reason for that maybe to submit for funding.
Yeah, we'll look into that.
Thank you for your questions and comments.
Okay, so I don't think we've already approved for this to happen, and I just appreciate all the extra detail. If nobody else has any questions or comments, I think we're gonna move on from here. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Good? All right.
That is wonderful. Thank you. I would just like to tell you that we have so many volunteers just chomping at the bit. And we were talking about having volunteers at this site as early as Friday. If council's okay with that.
Right, so that's why I was asking my question. I wanted to make sure that funding immediately was not going to be an issue.
Mhm.
And everything else is set in place. We'll just get you a few more copies of the liability waiver. I'll get those to you, and a clipboard or something, and you can start the project. I don't have anybody, no objections, right? Okay,
No, it sounds
Great.
great.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, everyone. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray.
thank you.
Thanks,
Ray.
Rhea.
Thanks for making Verona more beautiful.
Thanks.
And to all the prospective volunteers.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Okay, moving on. The next part on the agenda says Sarah McGonigal from Pittsburgh Event Studio. She's unable to be here tonight. I have an email from her. I told her I would read the last part of it. I'll also let you know that I had a conversation with her, and it went very well. And the bottom line is that we figure that we will be able to work together, find a way for everything that she needs, and what the borough's concerns are, and we'll work it out. And Dave Matlin is going to talk about the street closure permit later in the meeting. And so I'm just going to read what she said. It's coming from Sarah, not from me. Her main concerns are, number one, an application process for street closures, Mr. Mallon, controlled by the council and with a timeline of 3 to 4 months in advance in order to have approval. Street closures in the business district should be limited and not switched at the last minute. Number two, a community calendar controlled by the council and distributed to businesses in advance so there aren't surprise events and date changes. So that's what she's hoping for. I'm not sure that we can accommodate every single thing, but we can certainly work together and make it easier for the businesses that are affected. And we'll talk more about this maybe in the mayor's report and also in Dave's report. So that's that. What is next? Oh, okay. Any urgent additional agenda items that aren't already on the agenda? Anybody have anything? No. Okay, great. At this time, we'll take comments from the public on agenda items. Please approach the podium or raise your virtual hand. Clearly state your name and address and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Do we have any raised hands? Oh, here comes Tim. Can you turn that on, please? Thank you.
Hello,
Hi.
Tim Long, 323 Pine Street.
Yeah.
I just have 2 questions. One, the last 7 meeting minutes. not up on the website yet.
You're right.
Yes, you guys are way behind.
Yes.
I went there to try to read some minutes, but they weren't there. So I think it's something that you guys got to get on. I don't know how hard your website is to use, but it shouldn't be that hard to upload.
Yeah.
Minutes.
We don't, no, it's not the uploading. We haven't had anybody, Marcia quit, and we haven't had anybody who can do it.
We can provide printed copies this evening if you want 7 weeks.
No, I don't need.
No, we
I'm
don't
waiting.
have
Just
print copies.
I want everything to move a little bit faster, especially when it comes to putting information on the website. Secondly, I did see that somebody was up here fertilizing Railroad Park on Monday in the afternoon, but there was nothing posted about it. I know typically when there's fertilization, the park should be closed for 24 hours to keep dogs and kids and people out of the park so that they're not on the grass with the fertilization.
Mm-hmm.
And that wasn't posted on Railroad Park.
I didn't know about it.
Yeah. I was walking to work yesterday and I seen them up here fertilizing, so.
Okay. Oh,
Was there a name of a company or anything?
I started with an M. I couldn't see his truck. I was on the other side of the street. But yeah, they were up here with a green machine.
Milt Landscaping, I think it is.
That was it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, we need to work on communication with the Department of Public Works.
Yeah, that.
Yeah.
And, I don't know if they did cribs, so that would be something to ask because cribs should not be done since they just planted a whole bunch of new grass seed up there. If you fertilize it, you're just gonna kill all the
Right.
grass. So just things to look out. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tim.
Anybody else raising their hand on the Zoom?
Nope.
Okay. Thanks. All right, next up is me. All righty. Update on Borough Secretary search. We're very, very close. We have sent out an offer letter as of Monday, yesterday, and we've had a response back from our candidate, and we will be addressing whatever concerns that she had tonight at exec session after the meeting. So I'm praying and hoping that we can have her here working by September 1st, and with any luck, maybe sooner. So that's where that stands. This is very exciting. In the meantime, Lisa has been providing us with lots of help. And I just want to make a shout out to Lisa Jensen for all her help in the office. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, I skipped this last time because it was such a full meeting and it's not going to take much. If I recall from Shirley, we need to get 300 hot dogs, 300 buns, 100 fruit cups or apple sauces, and 300 cookies. I talked to the mayor a few weeks ago, and I thought what would be the easiest for this dinner, do you know what I'm referring to, Joey?
Yeah, it just sounded like one of my kids' math problems when you started.
Yeah, if you have 300 hot dogs. Yeah, if you have 300 hot dogs and 24 kids don't want buns, how many buns do you need? Anyway, and the mayor and I thought would be the easiest. We just go to Sam's Club, the two of us, get everything, let everybody know how much it costs, divided by 7 or 8, I guess, divided by 8. And then we just all chip in the same amount of money. The only thing I don't know about, a little birdie told me, Janet, that the last time you actually made 300 cookies. So the question is, would you want to do that again?
Sure.
But then that way, then you wouldn't have to, then we divide by 7, you wouldn't have to pay. Yeah. Okay, so cookies are handled. Thank you. All right.
I'll also offer that I know Sam's Club has traditionally helped. There's a lot of Sam's Club members in our community. They do offer things for free if asked. So if you give them the opportunity for them
Okay.
to donate, They often do donate.
Okay.
Really good partner in the community and locally at the same time.
Yeah, so maybe what we could do is, I'll put you on the dinner committee and get with you later, and then all Dave and I would have to do is actually just go there. Or maybe get half or something, whatever it would be. So if everybody's,
Nancy, excuse me, you'll need
Yes.
a letter on letterhead to present to Sam's Club.
Correct.
okay, well, we'll take care of that. Thank you. Oh, I forgot, also 6 blocks of Velveeta cheese. That's another thing. Anyway, okay, so this is going to be on August 25th. And I'll get with Shirley about precisely when she wants us there to help set up. In the past, when the people were eating in the place, we would serve the food, but it's just a grab and go. So we just help put the boxes together and put them in the bags and give them to the people. So that is all I have on that. That was easy.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Did you say some of the dogs will be vegetarian dogs?
Oh, I would like that.
Same.
So I don't know if Sam's Club has veggie dogs because we were looking into that for the for something for the yeah. So we'll look into that also because I'll definitely look into that. Thank you. Yes, veggie dogs. Let me write that down. Okey doke. And I'm just gonna call for an exec session for personnel. And I believe that's it for my report for tonight. Can you guys believe it?
No.
All right, go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam President. The street closing, Madam President briefly went over that. We were going to discuss that. Apparently she had other commitments tonight. We were going to try to, work that out, which we will. And the next item is the mayor's conference. I went and some of this stuff that was talked about, like Act 57 and 59, hiring police officers and public reports and the agenda. Craig's going to have to explain to us. President and I were talking about that this afternoon, that he has to, a little more information he's going to need, that we're going to need to really understand that.
I did talk to him and he is gonna put together something for the next meeting on August 10th.
And these are all things that were brought up. And they did say, your solicitor would be involved, heavily in this, explain this, more in detail. Another one was cyber attacks they were talking about. It was very interesting about the cyber attacks, just because Verona is a small town, we're not exempt from that. They're not going to, more likely, they're not going to come after us and ask for millions of dollars, but they can do damage to shutting down our entire system. This gentleman was an expert on cyber attacks with the FBI, and he asked how many communities have had a problem, and 4 of them put up their hands, and it was mainly disruption in the computers, payroll and what have you, until they got it straightened out. And he did say Atlanta, which is one of the largest municipalities in the United States, they got hit for $2.6 million they had to pay, and that was just recently. And I thought that was very interesting. So, well, I guess what I'm trying to say is, we as a small town of 2,500 people, we're not exempt from that happening. They highly recommend looking into some type of insurance, but that's up to the board in the future or whatever. The other thing they were talking about was Pennsylvania is the only state that does not have use of radar for their police departments. Legislation apparently they feel that it's going to be a money-making thing for a lot of communities. But what makes me laugh is it was also brought up about fireworks. A lot of these communities, would like to stop fireworks. And the gentleman that was talking, and I do have his name my notes here. He said more likely that's not going to happen. They're trying to get a law passed that, fireworks would be illegal again, but it's a money-making thing. And what kind of makes me laugh is the radar situation saves lives, slows people down, and they claim it's a money-making thing. But on the other hand, the fireworks is okay because they make millions off of fireworks, every year. And that's a little confusing to me. On one hand, safety, well, we can't do that because it's a money-making thing. But on the other hand, fireworks, it's going to be a tough fight for communities to try to get it stopped. So, but it was very interesting. I did learn a lot, especially talking to other mayors, about our departments and what have you. And one of the things that I had brought up about the police car, at first when we got the brand new police car, the first one in 2018, one of the council members said 3-month waiting period before any of the part-timers could use the car. I waited 6 months and I had brought it back up about using the police car, and then it was, the motion was rescinded and no one was allowed to use the police car except for the 3 full-time officers. Well, I talked to the mayor's attorney, and he says that council has no right telling the mayor who can use the police car. So that police car will go into action with anybody that could use it. And the last thing I have is Rosedale Pool. They're having their fall festival September. Can't remember the dates. And in the past, we put a sign up at Cribbsfield, and they're asking if we could put if they could put the sign back up at Cribbsfield by the stop sign on the fence.
Yeah, I hope
Is it
it's
the
not on the
same size?
18th and 19th.
16th and 17th.
Is that what it is? 16.
Is it the same size as the one down street?
Yeah, it might be a little smaller.
Okay. 'Cause that one's pretty big.
Actually, that one's coming down until after our car cruise. They put it up before we had ours up.
Does anybody have any objections to putting the sign up at Cribbsfield for Rosedale?
I'll tell them, we've done it in the past.
Maybe we could put a sign up in Rosedale for our community day.
Good even trade.
Yeah,
Yeah,
How long do they want that up?
probably would.
starting
What's
when?
that?
How long do they want it up from now until the 16th or 17th of September?
Yeah,
Okay.
all right, thank you. That's all I have.
Tim, do you have any problems with them putting a sign up at Cribbs? Okay.
I have 2 questions. Can you share language for the insurance coverage that they shared with you for us to understand? So
Apparently, there's cyber insurance out there.
But we don't have it though, like we'd have to.
Right.
Okay.
And they're not saying you have to get it. It'd be a good idea to look into it. It's but friend of mine, she worked for UPMC and they have it in their office. She says like $700 a year for cyber insurance.
The other thing was, so I guess understand because I'm newer, but the car instance that you just shared, is that just a precedence or is this a current issue right now where you don't have officers vested by the time period that they can drive a vehicle?
The part-timers, the board, not this board, but back then in 18, said that only the full-timers would be
So
allowed.
past issue, not current issue.
Right. Well, it's still a current issue, but I'm releasing the car for anybody to drive.
Same as if we got a shovel, the whole crew gets to use it, or if we get a
Exactly.
resource, everyone uses it.
Exactly.
I was aware of that in the past, but it's not an issue now.
Right.
Okay, is that it?
Oh, and one
Oh,
other
one-
thing, I'm sorry. And you know what, I apologize. I'm looking at my notes now and I didn't bring it up about the raccoons.
Oh,
And this just came to me actually this morning or yesterday, I believe it was. One second. They will be Allegheny County Health Department. And it is important, so we have to bring this up.
mhm, yep,
here.
that's A.
Okay, from July 29th through September 15th, the county will be baiting both by hand in ground vehicles and by aircraft, including helicopter and fixed-wing airplanes, flying low over residential areas. And they are putting bait down for raccoons throughout Allegheny County. They're asking to, if you see these little packets on the ground, do not go near them. They're called fish meal blocks. They're packets coated with fish meal, and the raccoons in the evening will take them and eat them, and they actually get vaccinated with the antibodies to prevent rabies virus. And they're saying they have asked to keep your dog on the leash so they don't come across these, which they should be on the leash anyways. Watch for children picking them up possibly on your walks. So I just wanted to let the public know that they will be spraying and throwing these packs out of, I guess, planes and helicopters, or hand delivering them throughout the community.
What date's that, Dave?
July 29th through the 15th, September 15th. And
July and all of August and then September.
yes, July 29th to September. So then they're going to be doing the whole entire county, Allegheny County. And it's in cooperation with emergency management. And I'm just reading some of this. And hand baiting. Oh, hand baiting will occur August 2nd through August 10th. So I presume they'll be coming around Verona, throwing them out by hand. Probably more so like in Penn Hills in a wooded area, as they would do it by helicopter or low flying planes, they would throw the bait out. Just to let everybody know. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor. Okay, next up would be Mr. Warren.
Thank you. I just have transition updates on here. So being the newest member, I just want to give an update on some of the things that I'm doing. So it's been lots of reading. It's been a lot of introductions with people within the community. I did meet AJ last week or a week and a half ago, our foreman, walked through the garage with him, asked him what his needs were, let him know I'm here to support, but also have the committee I work with Ray and Dave to support whatever they need. The biggest thing I asked him about was leaf pickup and the salt that will be coming up this winter, just to make sure that he and his crew were good to go, and he had every bit of confidence. The only thing that did come up that I did want to discuss, which is probably by committee with Ray and Dave, if you guys don't mind meeting on the schedule you had already, we'll probably just pick up on the Monday that we have our next meeting as the calendar goes. But addressing the idea of leaf pickup and where that would be dropped off. I understood from my first night during appointment that we would not be doing any of the disposal of the leaf collection on the far end of First Street at the height of Wildwood, but there would be another place. But AJ was under the assumption they will be dumping there. So I think there was a conflict there. So definitely a solution, whether it be composting, another location, a dumpster, whatever it is. But I think if the three of us can discuss it, have a recommendation for all council, we'll be able to do that in advance of leaves dropping off. I'm also scheduled to meet with Matt Pitch this week. I'd like to understand more about our community with the actual maps, current work and projects we have. He did email me a number of things, but we're going to meet in person so I can make sure that I understand all the things that are going on with our public works. Also asked AJ, because he's feet on the ground, he knows a lot. He's been here for a long time, but what resources we have, what resources we need, what improvements we might need. And walking through the garage, he pointed to a number of things that are in good shape, they're in working condition, they're either new, also noting that we have shared resources with neighboring communities. So I didn't hear anything from him that should be anything that should be immediate for this year that I understood, other than taking a look at where the lease will go. So I think that's something we can easily tackle. Something he did note, because I mentioned about a 5-year capital campaign that's probably going to be explored for, I think it's 5,000 or 5 years. And he did mention the metal doors for the garage, because we only walked through this garage. But also the roof in the building here. So he mentioned that with the age of the roof, it might be something that when the time comes, we can take a look at that as something that he would maybe recommend is worth giving our attention to. So these things I'll be bringing so that Ray, Dave, and I can talk through these at our next meeting.
I believe the roof is like 95 when we moved in here.
He said the same thing.
Yeah,
So just based on the age alone.
Right.
I don't know what the other side looks like, but from the front top, I mean, it's not too bad.
Right.
But we should plan ahead so we're not being
25, 30 years, yeah. It's probably due.
Yeah. So if we tackle it up front, I don't know if we'll be able to prorate any of it. I don't know if there's any advantage to starting early, but something to note for the future.
The building at the time, you know what I mean?
Yep.
There's two.
Actually,
buildings.
that's one of the things too, I wanted to make sure I knew. I wanted to help understand our footprint so that we can assess what green spaces we have, what we mow and what we weed eat, what we don't weed eat, what we don't spray. I guess we don't spray anything here. What roofs, what structures we have as assets, because there are a number of things that we have here that might have been used for something in the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, the 2010s, but some of these things have aged so much that I think maybe with the assessment of what we have or what we need, we could probably maybe realign where we have things or streamline uses of space and maybe have more assets than we realize.
I keep forgetting to bring it up too. I'm glad you said about the roof. Put on your notes, the pavilion down at the park by the river. That was my son's Boy Scout, the Eagle Scout project, and that was in 2000, and the roof is starting to really show its age before it starts to go through.
Yeah. So what Matt provided were things like that. So we're going to go through on Friday, and I'll have a better view of what that is. Plus, there's some historical knowledge that some people do have. Ray, specifically, when we talk, I think some of the things that the firehouse has where you are, but also, I guess, the garage on the far side on Arch also has some things that you have in storage as well. So both new ways to approach it. Some of this is, historical knowledge, and maybe we don't use it often, but it's needing to stay how it is. So all I agree.
Thanks. Is that it? Okay, thank you. All right, next up, Mr. Metlin.
Thank you, Madam President. So the the first thing I have is the street closure permit application. So I think I brought this up at the last workshop, and got some good comments from council at the meeting and after the meeting. There was good discussion. I tried to take notes as best I could and incorporate the comments as best I could. So I'm gonna try to, I'm gonna pull it up here. And so you can see up on the screen, make that bigger. But everyone see that okay? If I still see that okay, everyone here?
Well, it's more for the people at home. I don't know. Can you see that, Tim, from over
Well, I
there?
gotta share it first, but
Oh, okay. But we have the papers.
yeah, I just wanted the people in the audience. So screen share here. So yeah, I highlighted at the top, I highlighted two things that I figured we could discuss tonight and maybe have a decision or tentative decision on. The lighter shading are things that I edited or revised from last time. So there wasn't a whole lot. The biggest things, as I put it in here based on the comments from last time was, there's a line for trash barrels requested, and the intent of this, I don't want to have, I don't want to be a burden on the public works or the staff or anything, but I know that we have blue trash barrels that we typically put out for parks events, for larger events. So I thought those are readily available. They're not normally being used. If someone's closing the street for a community event and they needed those receptacles for trash, then we could allow them to ask for that, and then it would just be a matter of the public works crew putting that out. And then I had a note in there that event host is responsible for removal of all trash. So that's open to discussion or revision.
Do you want to wait till the end or go line for line?
Yeah, why don't we just go line for line, because we've already reviewed it as a whole. We've shared it with everyone. As far as trash barrels, I mean, do we think that's reasonable, or you have comment?
I would have a change of the word on here just to make comment myself. I don't know how council feels, but for the note, event host is responsible for, I would put collection of trash, but I think that providing empty trash collection canisters at the beginning and then at the close of the event, if, when we're done, if they're done, the full ones are moved the next day, then, that should be fine. I think it should be something that's communicated to our crew that that's something they could do. If it's, what was I gonna say with that? If there is a spread of garbage that's been left behind, people didn't pick up, they weren't responsible. I mean, that's when you forfeit your deposit or you're charged for it. But I think normal use would be not the removal of the trash, but just the collection of the trash. So my recommendation for that line would be to update removal to collection.
Okay. Do you think we need to maybe review with AJ that is something that they are willing and capable of doing in the event of I mean, and I know I think they've done in the past, Dave. I mean, for like a car cruise or
They've done
something.
it for everything.
So,
the
yeah.
fall festival, the park cruise, community days, they've done it for everything.
So
Okay.
he's worked with the chamber, he's worked with a number of people in the community. So I would say it's probably a communication thing, but having met AJ last week, he seems like he knows what he's doing. He's willing to do anything for the community. I think if it's provided in advance where it's not like, hey, tomorrow do this, but it's like, we have an application that came in 6 weeks ago. In 6 weeks, we're gonna have the event. He just puts on the calendar that the crew's aware of it. It should be a non-issue. Now, if we have event after event where it's more than just the event's trash, where it's plastic wrappers and paper plates, that's an issue. And I think we should probably amend this. But I think if it's within proper use, I think you're right. We should ask AJ himself.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, it's more just to double check that he's, with future events that he's okay with that. Because I know in the past he's done it. I wouldn't anticipate a problem, but I don't want to make any assumptions. But
And also, if I may, he also puts up the roadblocks when we close the street down. If a resident asks for, like up on North Avenue, they have a block party, he'll put cones at the corner, and the residents will block the street, both ends off. But if it's down here where we need detour signs and different signage, throughout the business district, he takes care of all that. He knows the routine and where to put everything.
yeah, and there's a line on here for where did I put it? Yeah, has this event closure been reviewed with borough manager or secretary, the DPW foreman? So the intent of this is it's a checklist. This comes in from someone that it's either the event host, and maybe the event host hasn't reviewed with them before they submitted, but it's a checklist to make sure that someone reviews it with AJ in advance to make sure that they're aware of it, that they can support it however needed, and that it's communicated to AJ what's going on, so that like Joey mentioned, he can put it on his calendar and he knows what to do in advance. And just to be aware of it, I think it's good that everyone, the chief, AJ, the borough staff, whoever, be aware of what's going on. So
Dave, can I ask something?
Sure.
So it occurs to me that when we had the botany and booze, that we needed a guy from the street crew on duty that Saturday. They were busy all day, and many events we have extra police. So I don't know how to put that in there. The person applying wouldn't necessarily know, but somehow I think there should be maybe some contribution from the people hosting the event toward the expenses of that overtime for that person.
yeah, that's a good point. I mean, it maybe could be on a case-by-case basis. I mean, it's not like every event or every street closure is going to require extra police or
Correct,
extra
correct,
DPW.
correct.
So
And every event doesn't need electricity or, you know, I mean, so it's variable according to the size and the nature of the event.
yeah, I'd taken out electricity because I wasn't sure if we wanted to be in the habit of allowing electrical hookups, but I know we've done that in the past.
I think,
Um,
Janet, is it true that the park permit has a place where it says, do you need electricity?
Yeah,
So we asked for
We
it on
can-
the park permit.
Are we essentially extending the amenities of the space they're using so that, I mean, I had a note on a couple of these. Like if you're using this space here, then you have the restrooms inside. If you're using the space here, you might have a faucet. If you're using the space here, you might have light. So is it in just using the space, you have what's available, but we're not charging beyond just the normal use? For instance, if you're gonna host a party outside this space here, parking only allows for so many, spots, so you use what's available. But if you are having to have restrooms for 400 people, then it's on them to rent porta potties beyond X amount of attendees that would then use these restrooms as their zone.
Mhm.
I mean, the intent is, I mean, a lot of the events that this has dealt with have been on East Railroad, right out front here. So the Borough Building and the garage and the parking lot and Railroad Park are all right there.
Or the participating businesses too, because if they're extension of a community event, then you all of a sudden have restrooms and you have, the extensions of them being a part of a community event. I don't know, maybe they are then.
Well,
helping with that.
yeah, so this is this, are we meaning for this to be for community borough events as well as quote unquote private events?
Well, I mean, any event that's closing that's asking to close the street. I mean, it's ultimately up to council whether
Yeah.
or not we allow that street closure, but
When is this gonna go into effect? Because I got a car cruise in 3 weeks.
No, it's not
and-
gonna go into effect by then.
Well, I'm just asking because we're gonna probably have to cancel because this is all, they're talking porta potties and possible electricity and.
so my only intent was that this is a checklist for the event host
Right.
and for the borough staff to know what is being, to basically make sure that they've done their due diligence in putting together a plan for an event. And that if they're asking to close the street, that they've, taken care of these different things, so that we know what's available. So we know how to support, and so we know what they're doing. I mean, it's more detailed than just, what's the event? Because someone could say car cruise and not say, oh, well, they're gonna, close it from here to here, and they're gonna have vendors set. You know what I mean? It's to get more information out of the event as to what's going on, so that again, the complaint for the past event in June was that there wasn't enough communication within the borough, within staff, within neighboring businesses, that sort of thing. So this is to get that information out and communicated to everyone.
No, and I
So-
agree with that.
The idea would be that this form could be shared with the chief, with AJ. There's lines for internal use, to check off. And I'll get to that in a minute, but I don't know that we're going to provide any facilities other than, I know we've allowed use of the borough building for past events. I don't see why we wouldn't continue to do that, but if they are providing facilities, or if they, like someone mentioned, if it's a business or there's businesses participating that have restroom facilities available, it's just good to know, hey, have you guys planned out your restroom facilities? Are the borough facilities going to be needed? That sort of thing. I mean, we can make this go into effect whenever we want. It was just more of a, hey, let's have a process and a checklist for how we review and approve these kind of events. That closing a street is a big deal, and it affects a lot of people. So
And
I
I
wanna
do
make
agree
sure
with this.
yeah.
I'm not disagreeing.
Yeah.
I guess the problem that I'm having is the dollar amount. Like the chambers, the community group, they're all nonprofit organizations. They really don't have the money, to put out. And we've always looked at it as, the borough is kind of giving back to the community by opening their doors and, using electricity, using I mean, it is a public building. And you're talking of even the farmer's market. You're bringing people into town, and that's what we want, so, I mean, our car cruise brings 300-400 people in,
Mhm.
and we're bringing people in, they're spending money at the restaurants.
Mhm.
If we start, hitting all these nonprofit groups that are trying to raise money to continue the, betterment of the community, they're going to back off and say, well, we can't afford it.
Well,
Two things, I think you could waive the fee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Secure a deposit that would cover the cost of extra this, or, something being broken or whatever, but if the event goes on like it always has, there's no issue, then if it's a deposit, then it's returned.
No, I agree 100% with the businesses.
Yeah.
Like we've had, coming out and say, hey, we want to close the street. Well, then there should be some, compensation.
Also, I think this is a positive thing too, because if you get this 6 weeks in advance, and just to start, I don't want to interrupt anything that's going on in 3 weeks. I would not want to do that. Like that
Right.
needs to
Right.
move forward. The intention of this should be also that with 6 weeks advance notice, police know what are going on, Chamber of Commerce knows what's going on. If it's going to be on a Saturday and they need to staff 9 people, not 4 people, then they know in advance so that their business can flourish at the same time too. They can have their doors open earlier.
Right.
So I don't know that this is going to be a negative thing.
No, I think it's a
Anyway,
positive thing. Other than, maybe charging,
Well,
it's.
Dave, I think, and then this is something I think you suggested, Janet, is waiving the fee for nonprofits. Assuming we say we want to have a permit fee, and or a deposit. So I think that's a good idea, because I know that, the nonprofits are, they're struggling to fundraise, just
Right.
they're doing the events to fundraise and to take a lot of money out. The other thing is, generally, I think the policy, I mean, and this is up to the council as a whole, but the policy should be, if we're closing down East Railroad, it should be, a public event that's benefiting the greater good. Like you're talking about, people bringing in traffic to businesses, to the business district, to the community, to see Verona. Now, there were some, I think, inaccurate accusations made a couple months ago about the Inner Groove event, that it was a quote unquote private event, and it was not a private event. It was a public event. Now, it was hosted by a private business, but it was open to the public. It was advertised as such. They were doing this as a public community event.
Right.
Now, there might be another event like the garden club events they're hosted by a community driven event or an organization. It's still a public event just in the same. So I don't know that we would shut the road down for a private event that's exclusive to only certain people, because that's, it's a public road. So I think
We have done that.
in
East Railroad?
East Railroad.
Yeah.
The Greek hall here.
True. Yeah. So
So we have done
They
that.
have their picnic
Yeah.
once, or a big party once a year.
and that's
And that's a private event?
that's up to council. I
Mhm.
mean, but I guess, it has to be weighed. Is this a big impact to traffic and to the community, and is it benefiting the community? So, I
And
mean,
with the 150-year history, I'm sure there's precedent for all of that. If any club, any organization, any business, any community group want to do this, this is just a system so that everyone's communicating, because it seems like communication has been the biggest hurdle. So everyone knows when it's happening, who's participating, who's benefiting, and how they can be included.
yep.
So in August, there's going to be a private event here at Railroad. It's going to be pretty big, 150 people. But they have been incredibly responsible in doing every piece of paperwork that they're supposed to do, putting down their deposit. So I do think there's a difference between whether it's a chamber event, a borough event, a community group, nonprofit, whatever.
Case by case.
Yeah, so maybe we could have at the top, is this a private group or is this associated with the borough? And you just check that off at the very beginning.
What about commercial versus nonprofit?
Yeah, because associated with the borough what is that? And would Garden Club be associated with the borough?
Yes.
No.
In what way?
because they're raising money to beautify the town.
Well, the chamber raises money, to help beautify the town too. We put the
Right.
Christmas lights up,
Right,
we pay for
Yeah,
them. Yeah,
no,
so.
I
I
would
mean, a
have- I
private
would
business
include
could do
all
the same
those in-
things.
in community.
Yeah,
events.
Intergroup, they gave $1,000,
Yeah.
donation to the
Mhm.
borough.
I mean, I think,
I guess we'll have to work on that. See
Yeah.
where we want to be.
I
But this
mean,
is
you
a-
could even just, instead of having two forms, sorry to interrupt there. Just at the top, is this commercial for a commercial event or another square nonprofit? And just check it off and then go from there. I see this kind of as one person at the office or being assigned to just do these things,
Mhm.
to arrange this and know, to alert AJ and the guys that they're gonna need to be there. Overtime costs can really, when you're talking cops and street,
Mhm.
it gets into money.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I think commercial being the differentiator is different than public facing or not. So I would recommend it either is acknowledged as a public event, which means anyone can go, anyone can participate, or if it's closed. If someone's having a graduation party for their child who just graduated college and they come back home to the pavilion, will we close off the street? If someone's doing a flower sale and having beer and showcasing vehicles or whatever the world's best community event would be, it's open to the public, should we close the street?
No, not always. Yeah,
but sometimes.
sometimes.
well, so maybe there's two options here. One is, is the host a commercial versus a nonprofit entity? So nonprofit entity would be,
I see what you're saying then. So the host is commercial or not.
yeah, and then,
Or profit versus nonprofit.
and then
Or
if,
profit,
if,
nonprofit.
if there is the chance, like Ray had a good point about, the Acarian Club, if they wanted to host that, and they've done it in the past, host their private event and close down just this portion of railroad, and there's a precedent for that, and that's something the council wishes to do, to honor, then maybe we should have a line on the permit to say, is this is this event open to the public or private? So that we know, and then everyone else knows that this is, okay, we're gonna approve this private event, but for these reasons, or we're gonna deny this event and it's because it's a private event, or, whatever the reason may be.
So then they would complete the form, they'd submit it in, 6-8 weeks in advance. It'd be provided to the office. We would at the next public meeting have time to someone announce it, and vote on it, and then it would happen or not. And just be case by case on whether we waive the fee or not. Or advance or not, maybe it's.
That
declined.
seems
Maybe
like a
say we
logical
have,
approach.
four people requesting to close the street at the same time, so we have to assess and have priority to this. I don't think it'll be vindictive for anyone to try to throw a street party on the same street during the same week, but
Yeah,
if there's any celebration for anything that maybe overlaps, we might have to at some point decide, how do we please all parties? Maybe it's just one single road closure and we just acknowledge there's not going to be a lot of parking, but people can walk, or local walk in the community. And then everyone knows there's 3 parties going on, there's 3 things going on, and you plan on walking or parking
Well,
from a distance.
I think,
Likely there wouldn't be 3 things going on.
yeah.
You would think,
I mean, we're growing, but.
But I think we talked about this, to improve a borough calendar of, for not only for the office staff, but for council and for the public to see what events the borough has approved. And I don't know if the borough would necessarily be able to do a community calendar that would include every single community event, just because there's so many other groups doing other things. I would think that the borough, we should focus on making sure for our street closures, for our park reservations, for if someone's reserving council chambers for a meeting, those sorts of things on borough property or borough facilities, we should have a good handle on. Okay, it's first come, first serve. If you want to rent Railroad Park, you put in the application, you get it approved, and then you're good. Same with the street closure. So I don't think that would avoid the 3 events scheduled at the same time. Now, the other issue that Nancy brought up in the comments from the Pittsburgh Event Studio was that they were wanting more advanced notice to know when they're, it sounds like they have events 6 months, booked 6 months out. And I don't know, that's the other thing here is one, the fee and how soon do we want to have these permits submitted? I think personally, something like 6 months is a long time to try to, that puts a lot of pressure on the community groups to try to plan that far in advance to compete with a private business that's hosting private events, to make sure that it doesn't conflict. I think, I don't know, a couple months somewhere, give or take, it seems reasonable to me, but that's up to the council
I would
to
say,
decide.
for instance, Botany Booze, IGB, I know that Botany Booze was being planned at least 4 months in advance, if not even more. I don't know if they settled on the date. If you can remember, I can't remember. But it takes that long to plan a big event. So as soon
True.
as they land on a date, anybody, the good part about the car cruise, it's always the second Saturday in August. So Sarah, I told her there's some dates you can count on that this road's always going to be closed. Memorial Day, second Saturday in August, and the Saturday before Thanksgiving every single year. So now she knows.
And like you said, like we're discussing, right now Chambers could say, hey, you know what? Why don't we have a big blowout for New Year's Eve?
Mhm.
Close down the street.
Mhm.
Then it's not giving anybody enough time.
Right.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is, I guess we can't, say, hey, we need to know this, months in advance. And I get it, what you're saying. I agree, but I don't know if months in advance, because nobody knows what they're going to do, 3 months from now. What if you have a high school kid, and like you said, a college kid, and the family says, you know what, why don't we rent the park down in Verona, in 3 weeks, for the party? I'd rather pay the borough a couple of dollars rather than going to another park. Then what he just,
Well,
To that point, Dave, though, I think the parks rental permit is a separate document that we already have. And that I don't think has any kind of I don't recall any kind of a time frame like that.
Okay.
So if you're wanting to rent the park, I mean, to me, it's closing the street. Yes, there needs to be more notice given than like 2 weeks for a high school graduation party or whatever, or a something like that in the park. Closing the street's a bigger deal, and it needs to give ample notice. But part of that, to me, is like what you outlined, Joey, is time for the borough staff to review it, to talk to the different department heads, to present it to council.
Make sure there's no conflict.
Make sure there's no conflict in the
Allow
calendar.
staff, the police.
And if there's issues, work them out with the event host in the meantime, and then bring it to a meeting. So to me, it should be at least a month.
I think 2 months.
2 months. I don't know how far out we want to go. So
I think you look at scheduling, like if we're gonna schedule for your police department or for the, public works or for the staff here or any restaurant or business in town, I'm gonna guess and say that most of them are like a bi-weekly calendar. So like they need 2 weeks to staff, 2 weeks to respond or take a look at vacation time. So I think 3 or 4 weeks is enough time to be reactionary if there's somebody where, the weather's nice or there's
Well,
possibility to do something.
yeah, the only thing I would want to point out is that in terms of council meeting scheduling, to review it or approve or not approve, for instance, in August, we have a meeting on the 10th, and then we have a meeting on the 31st. There's a 3-week window. And, if somebody puts in an application on August 9th, we might not know about it on the 10th and they want it for September, what I'm saying? I'm just saying a bigger, wider window. I'm saying 6 to 8 weeks.
What if the submission has to be by the business meeting prior to the month that they're having the event, so that we have this meeting dedicated to reviewing?
Yeah.
I think that gets a little bit complicated. Most people aren't well versed in our meeting schedule. I more agree with what Nancy said, 2 months.
Yeah.
Maybe even 3.
Well,
If
yeah.
it was first come, first serve, that
Well,
would,
there.
I mean,
Yeah.
and that was widely known,
Mhm.
that would, instill in people the need to get there appointment in.
So,
don't-
and it is case by case. It has to be case by case because the North Avenue closure does not affect, doesn't, I mean, half of this stuff isn't even like applicable. But East Railroad Street closure, it is, especially like for the car cruise. But the car cruise is one of the most well-attended events, and it's not necessary to provide extra restroom facilities. We've never had to do it, right? We've never
No.
brought in porta johns.
No,
So between the Borough Building and people just going to the businesses around, you know, I'm
Well,
not sure
Well,
about that.
so I have a
Yeah.
line on here, is this event closure a residential block
Right.
party? So
Yeah,
I could move that farther up,
yeah,
and then some of these lines I could say, if so, if it's a residential block party, skip.
yeah, if
Skip
yes,
line.
do this, if no,
Yeah.
do that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Could be a decision
Right.
tree.
Right,
Yeah.
right, a flow chart. Yeah,
So,
that's a good idea.
because I didn't, and I think someone mentioned, you know, should we do a separate form for a block party? I was trying to keep it relatively simple, not have a million different forms.
Right.
Um,
There wouldn't really be a permit fee for a private block party. So that would be
That-
part of the decision tree. Like if it's just a block party, then we go down that part and say then no fee is necessary. It doesn't require anything from us,
yeah.
you know?
Or you can restrict the form to just certain streets. Like East Railroad.
True.
Oh, good idea, just for like,
That's when you need the
Yeah.
most manpower.
right,
Well,
right. That's a good idea
and then
too.
what if someone requests, you know, what if they want to close something down on, I don't know. Trying to think, James Street.
Can you just
I don't know.
identify the business district?
Yeah, yeah.
Street
Residential
closures in the
versus,
Business,
or-
commercial,
Just saying have
business.
two separate, or
yeah,
just-
no.
or just say this
um,
form is specifically for the business
Well,
district.
with the occupancy permit applications, we have a separate commercial form and a separate residential form.
If you go by what street you want this for, though, that kind of precludes a lot of this stuff. You won't have to ask that many questions.
On the residential.
Yeah,
Right.
you won't need to know about a block party.
We could do a separate,
I was thinking
Business
just one form too.
I don't know that, I mean, for, you know, we had one down on Penn Street, just close a block. The only thing we needed is a couple things to block up the street. And that was it. The rest of it took care of itself.
yeah, I mean, I know some
That's
of
more
these,
like a
yeah,
block
some of
party.
these are gonna be, you know, I can try to group these so that it's kind of the optional things for like
It's real
a
close. I think
commercial.
If you group, then it'll be easy, because if it's residential, commercial, yes or no, is it, however it was phrased, commercial or not-for-profit? Is it
Profit or
not-for-profit?
nonprofit,
You might
private or
just jump
public.
all the
Yeah.
way to the bottom, and then you don't need the rest. And then for a
Right.
few instances,
Okay,
there's one
Yeah.
thing involved, you just move your questions in different order.
Versus residential.
okay,
Thanks for doing that, David. It's
Yeah.
really tough.
Yeah,
yeah, so I'll group it. I'll include the stuff, I'll note what is optional so that, you know, it's clear, you know, that, okay, you don't need to
Mhm.
answer some of these questions if you're doing a block party,
right.
that sort of thing.
And do you need to be a resident or a business owner to request?
I would think so.
Not always.
Like,
I don't know if you
can-
want to spell that out, but
What would be an
Yeah.
example of not being a resident or
it's
business
cheaper to
owner?
come to Verona or free, so they just come here instead of going somewhere else. So they could avoid a cost altogether to do something. So I don't know if it's something worth exploring, but some neighboring communities, it's cheaper or easier, or it's nicer to go somewhere else. So do we want this to be open only to residents and businesses here? Or can someone from any other neighboring community bring their car classic here or do other things?
Do you allow it for parks, other
Yeah,
people?
they can't, yeah.
They don't have to be residents.
I don't think, in fact, it makes a difference on the form. If you're a resident, you pay less. If you're a non-resident, you pay
So
more.
that could be like,
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
That's what you were asking.
Yeah,
which is fine, we still benefit from them bringing something here, but then there would be, you know, cost that they would have,
Right.
it's not waived because they're not.
Yeah,
It's like out of state college or something.
right.
well, like the county, I think even like the county parks, you reserve a pavilion. If you're a county resident, it's one fee. If you're a
Right.
non-resident, it's another.
Right.
So, I mean, that kind of gets into the fee, the fee, which I don't know. I mean, maybe we revisit this, the fee thing, because there's the fee, there's a potential security deposit. If we wanted to include that, how do we differentiate or have, without getting too crazy, have different options for like a block party, which would be no fee, I'm assuming, to like closing East Railroad and needing a police officer and a DPW member. I mean, I don't know if we want to have that, some kind of fee schedule set up for those different scenarios, because I don't know that we'd want to make it just open to the whims of council, because then someone applies and they have no idea what to expect as far
Or
as
you
the
don't
fee.
know what cost you're incurring, you just waive fees left and right because of, what's been done before, and all of a sudden we're incurring the cost of a number of things that have been affected by a really good community event, but the actual cost to do it, we're just absorbing.
Do you want to make money from this, or do you want to break even?
Well, I don't think the intent is to make money. I think it's, if there are additional costs
Over time.
that are necessary above and beyond, I don't know. I mean, council,
You don't want to lose money either.
yeah, I mean, we could say, look, this is an event that, I don't know.
Right, and I think we all need to maybe take a little time to think, but the mayor made a good point about this in a way, for community events, is how the borough contributes, is by offering these things without
Yeah.
charging for them.
Mhm.
But there's, I don't know.
Yeah,
So
I don't.
let's take some time.
Yeah,
to think
and I'm
some
not
more.
suggesting
Yeah,
that we try to cover every nickel and dime that is spent,
right.
because if it's a public community event, it's bringing people to town, it's boosting the business district,
Mhm.
that's bringing attention to Verona, positive attention, then that's maybe worthy of the
Yeah.
public facilities.
Yes. Can I ask you one other question on the
Yeah.
first section? I think I'm just maybe having a blank brain moment, but you have, will alcohol be sampled or free at the event or be sold at the event? Do we need to know that? Because in the park, that's covered in the park permit. On the street were we thinking liability, or what were we?
I was thinking that would determine whether the liability, liability insurance is necessary. I mean, I don't know, maybe this is a question for Craig, is liability insurance needed for any event in the street?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody could trip
So,
over
yeah.
a block of air.
So, but then is does alcohol then affect that liability insurance? What, like?
Yes.
Well,
exactly.
but the people who are serving the alcohol are the ones that get the special insurance and all of those forms.
So, yeah, so this is more of a checklist. Like my intent was, this is a checklist to say, okay, you have your liability insurance. Okay,
Mhm.
you're selling alcohol. You are square with
Mhm.
PLCB on
Yeah,
your
PLC,
license to
right.
sell at a special event.
Right.
If you're sampling, okay, you still have liability necessary. So it's,
Yeah.
Same should be for food and food truck, they both permit license, inspections are up to date.
Correct.
so
And they're county health.
Just check the box that you are, and then,
Right. Food service.
provide
you're saying
insurance.
have a box for food trucks on here, or?
If you're gonna have somebody that's gonna use this, I don't know how far it needs to go, but you need to make sure it's covered, whether it's on this form or not, you need to make sure that those things are covered, so there's no liability on the.
Yeah.
on the borough. It's usually yes, like they have, that's how they're operating business, so it should be very easy for them to provide and say yes, and they have the paperwork they've been operating with as a business anyway, so whether it's alcohol sale, food sale, prepared food sale, any of those things, they're just checking a box, it's normal business, they do it anywhere they go.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
A
Okay.
lot to think about.
Yeah, the only other thing I was going to mention is at the bottom, I had a thing for internal use, and I added a few things, that there's a traffic or detour plan that the chief's aware of or okay with. Trish had asked, do we need to have an emergency evacuation plan? I don't know if that's necessary here. For us to review, or if it's,
I mean, like access to hydrants, access for ambulance and fire to come through if needed, like you're not having tents.
Yeah.
So,
so
yeah.
Ray, I don't know if that's a concern to you, or you think,
You have tents in the middle of the street, what are we gonna do? We're gonna have to just hand chuck lines
yeah, I
until
mean,
people move out. I mean, it's hard to prepare for everything.
mhm.
Right.
We can have somebody hold a function and say, well, you can't do this just because we might have a fire.
Mhm.
Or
Well,
just,
the car crews would be a perfect
Yeah.
example.
Yeah,
there are no cars in the middle of the street because we have to come down.
Or even, you know,
Yeah.
narrow.
I can guarantee you those car owners will be
They'll be
scrambling to
going
get
real
their
fast.
car.
I guess we can look into every single little thing and,
Where do you stop?
yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I think it's due diligence for us so that we don't have a liability for the questions I'm asking, but you're right. You know, if the fire department wants to have, access to the things they need, if someone needs to move last minute, I'm sure they'll move, but it's just making sure that we're covered where we need to be.
Yeah, and my thought was that, if we're reviewing something with the chief, the chief of police, do we need to review with the fire chief or anyone else? That's all.
yeah,
I mean, you can, maybe there's a blog, you can just check them off and say, hey,
Notified.
they're notified, the
Yeah.
chief's notified that there's this block party going on. Just like the alley over there we just did for that lady's wedding last week or whatever.
Mhm.
They know it, and
Yeah.
for that 2 or 3 hours, is bless you. It's hard to, you try to figure it all out, and we pulled up, there's been a car in the middle of the street, we had to hand chuck lines and,
Mhm.
coming from the other side or whatever,
Okay.
so.
If this is all coming from the intention of over communicating with people, I think it's okay. So if there's a couple extra check boxes, I think
Yeah.
it's fine, because I think the opposite is that people are upset and frustrated because they didn't know. So
Mhm.
I think it's really close. I think you got a lot of good feedback.
Yeah, and that's under internal use, so that would just be to let, someone in the borough office receives it and they let these people know, check it off.
Right.
And then, so, all right, so I'm gonna put on here for now 2 months prior to event.
And if you could also do a sign off at the end that somebody had checked the trash cans and that they had checked for damage. Someone's gonna have to sign off that things have been, everything's good for someone to release deposit. So I think the final step is somebody, within the borough, just make sure everything's complete, and then they can issue a check back or return the check they wrote.
Yeah, that's a good idea. So yeah, the big thing left, I think, is just the fees. So that's something to think about, and if people want to send comments and try to get this figured out in the
Are there
coming weeks.
comparable communities that you look to that have pricing we should look to adopt or consider?
That's a good point, because I looked up a few other communities that had these types of permits, and I forget honestly what the fees were there. I want to say it was like in the $50 to $100 range.
Yeah, my guess is
It's
just
not,
off the top of my head, like
not much.
$250 deposit, $50 fee. So it's not huge, but it's enough that if something breaks, gets damaged or whatever else.
yeah, and
Not release the check. Otherwise, it's $50. It goes towards wherever we put it through the budget. As a revenue, and then it helps support the things that were amenities for them to use it, and then it just self-suffices.
we could do $50 for a for-profit Verona resident and $75 for a for-profit non-resident, and waive any fees for any community-based function. Nonprofit, that type of thing. Just,
and then
yeah,
$250
yeah,
deposit.
deposit that they would get back, as long as basically AJ says it's okay.
Mhm.
Okay,
All right.
So what will satisfy the requirement of have all affected residents, businesses, or property owners been contacted and made aware? Is that something we would still have internally done, such as by a minute?
Yeah, that's a good point, because
We had talked about
we
that,
talked about-
possibly taking a letter to that block of people, right?
Correct.
yeah, did that end up happening for that alley closure?
yes.
Okay. I mean, if that's something that we're okay with, that Annette and the chief are okay with, I mean, that could be more of an internal thing
Yeah,
that
I don't
we,
have a problem doing that.
Yeah.
I mean, is that kind of the intent that everyone's thinking to have?
I think that's a lot of work for the office
Yeah,
to have to, I mean, if you're talking, yeah, all of East Railroad, that's a lot of notification.
yeah, that was my only concern with that. But
Being
What-
made public on the website in advance, does that cover notifying people, or does it need to be door to door?
A lot of people don't look at the website.
yeah, I think if the street's being closed on, East Railroad and you're a business owner or a resident, I mean, I think you deserve to be notified that the street's going to be closed on this date.
In writing to your door?
And well,
But by who?
yeah, that's the thing is if we put it on the host to do it, the host might be able to better answer questions about the event, but how do you prove that they did it?
Yeah, it needs to be a process.
And
I just
so
don't know we're lacking people right now, so who does that?
yeah,
I
that's
also don't know when we're.
But
adopting.
generally, I think what we're talking about for most events, it's this 700 block East Railroad. I think this is the main culprit right here. And when you realize, when you sit back and think, that's the one that's the only one that's gonna give us most of the issues, where you got a couple different businesses, the event center, the hula, the Icarians,
Coffee.
So
Yeah.
if Intergroove's having something, there's 10 businesses I don't know exactly how many, but there's 10 buildings out there on the 700 block of East Railroad. And that could walk that in their daily duties and drop something off. We never block off from the 600 block or 500 block. Am I right, Dave?
Right.
Generally, this is the
just
block
back
we're
street
talking
here.
about right here.
Absolutely.
I think we're really looking into, I understand there's certain things you need to look
And
into.
as far as residential area, North Avenue was always every year,
Yeah,
and the wedding was thrown in there.
yeah.
We haven't had two in a year,
Right. I just think Annette could walk this street on a day and just bloop, 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 bloop.
No, on the days of the Memorial Day Parade, we block East Railroad, James and ARB.
well, everybody's
But you never
closed.
block, we don't shut it down though.
Everybody's closed too,
Escort.
Memorial Day.
What's that?
It's just an escort, it's not closed.
Yeah, the fire trucks line up down below in front of the gardens, all the fire trucks and all that. And the band and people can, if they have to drive through there, they can,
It's a procession, it's not.
Yeah, for that half hour, I don't.
Right, it's only half
I
hours
don't
on a
see- I
holiday.
don't personally see an
Yeah.
issue with that.
Right.
No
Yeah.
businesses are gonna lose business that day for that,
Mhm.
yeah, it's a
especially
little
being
different.
9:30 in the morning.
And they're
Right.
closed
Right.
anyways, Memorial Day.
Right, and then on the light up night, that's on a Saturday, and that also doesn't take very long for.
It
once-
doesn't, it's not
yeah.
every year in Verona that we line up here. It's
It-
every other year.
Well, it's every year now.
It's
They
every year
changed it.
now.
What'd they change it to? Then?
Start
It
here.
starts in Verona now, but all the businesses are closed too.
Oh, they changed it to that?
Yeah.
It ends up in
Experimentally to see,
2 years.
since all of our efforts to have it end here and make it a big thing like Oakmont sort of didn't work. So we started making events here prior to, while everyone's gathered here, and that worked out a couple years ago when we did that.
But then again, like Dave said, it's the only one that would probably really affect by that would be maybe the event center. Because it's down that end,
Yeah, it's brief.
Right.
That's the other thing. It's not all day long.
right?
Yeah, so, yeah. Okay,
So notifications by Annette or internal?
I'd say our office.
yeah, it probably takes, whoever we might get in the office.
And we could have a
It's
card,
yeah,
we
5
could have a
minutes to-
card written up
yeah.
that they just
Fill in the
fill in.
date. Mhm,
Or it could be a template, they just print it.
Yep.
Print the
yeah,
ad,
yeah, make a flyer
date
and have
and the
a
street.
blank, yeah, date and time. Mhm,
Like Memorial Day, car cruise, light up night every
mhm.
year.
Or,
That can be-
right,
Like you say, this is the
Right.
main block,
yeah, that gets affected, yeah.
just from James, mostly just from south to the center.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Does the
well,
car crews using James this year, Dave, or by the Eagles in front of Miller's?
No, well, we'll use it in front of Miller's, yeah.
But is that gonna be blocked off?
Yeah, from the James Street, South Avenue, Center Avenue.
2 blocks. Yeah.
And we've never had a problem with
No.
traffic or anything.
I mean, I know I've heard people talk about potentially trying to have events in Diamond Way. So that's maybe something else that would come up. I agree that East Railroad is definitely the most common, or someone want to do south between ARB and East Railroad. There's.
And when you think about it, Diamond Alley, Diamond Way, put a barricade at each end.
Right.
There's no other way to get in and out of it. You
Yeah.
know, if somebody wants to have a little hoopla and, it's not like it's a lot of businesses in there. The businesses on the East
It's-
Railroad side.
No, but
No,
it's the
but
back of the businesses and, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if they have a delivery scheduled or something, I mean, it just, again, like Joey said, it's communication so that they know, so the borough knows. Someone calls and says, hey, why is Diamond Way closed? It's not.
Yeah, they have a shipment for the hardware store that always comes in, but no one's.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden they have to decline that shipment.
Saturday morning, he's waiting for
No one gets
his,
their beer, no one gets their hardware, and no one's happy.
And we'll
So-
hear about it, so.
right,
Anyway,
well-
good discussion. Can we move on now?
Yep.
Thank you.
Sorry for the, I appreciate the discussion and the feedback
Yeah.
for sure. I didn't realize it would go that long, but, so the second item, actually, there's really not much to talk about there because there was talk amongst the VOP committee to, after, I know Mike had mentioned at a previous meeting about, we had a field visit with PennDOT, a month or two ago. And we were looking at possibly applying for a PennDOT multimodal grant. Once we got an estimate back from a couple different people on what the cost might be, it's actually below the threshold for applying for that grant. So and I just found that out late last week. So it was before I submitted this on the agenda. So there's no application going in at this time for that. We still have the Active Allegheny grant, and we're going to be looking at other smaller grants to pursue to finish off the first segment. So that's all I have.
What was the minimum threshold?
100,000, I think, and we were looking at. It wouldn't have been any cost to the borough because it would have been using the Active Allegheny grant as a match for this bigger grant. But talking with Friends of the Riverfront, who's helping us with the application, and they went to some firms and got some cost estimates. It was more in like the 60 to 70,000 range at the most for the the traffic study, the planning, design detail, and I think construction documents for that first segment from down near the public docks to Oakmont, near, not quite to Creekside, but to Dark Hollow, basically. So,
Hmm.
so anyway, that's where we're at.
All right, great. Can you stop screen sharing?
Yep.
Thanks. Okay, thank you, Dave. Next is Trish Rezek Showalter.
Thank you, Madam President. The first item on my agenda for tonight is an updated comprehensive fee schedule for the borough. We've been lacking this, and now that we have Lisa, we've been slowly identifying more that we need to include. Council members should have a hard copy as well. So of note is we now have a fee stated for a no lien letter of $35. A few others that were added, we didn't include a fee, for example, for the dye test, but we did include a fee for if a compliance permit is required. I just wanted to share this with everyone tonight to generate ideas for things that we may be missing before we advertise the resolution. Although I feel like Dave set me up to make a note that we need to include something for food trucks as well as for the permit when outdoor alcohol is consumed alongside of dining. So I can consult some neighboring municipalities for some cost ideas on that. Also not included, but we probably will add, are all the park fees here so that everything is in one form, easy to find. And potentially, depending on what comes first, the fee for the street closure process as well, so. Does anyone have any questions, comments, or things that are obviously missing right now?
Regarding the food trucks, I believe we have a food truck ordinance
We
that
do.
was
We do.
passed a few. So is there some sort of a fee or permit as part of that?
Says there is a fee and a permit, but does not state what that is.
Okay.
Can I add? So when that was first made, I think it was new. And I think people thought we should do that, but I think what happened, it kind of fell by the wayside a bit because what we discovered is all the food trucks had their own criteria they had to meet in order to be a food truck that had to do with the county. And we figured out that if we were gonna have the food trucks have to pay something to come here, they wouldn't come here because they had too many other places they could be going that they wouldn't have to pay anything. So the food truck ordinance needs to be overhauled. I think it's on our list of, ordinance things to do. So.
So would you propose no fee then for food trucks?
Yeah, I would. I wouldn't have a fee for food trucks and I just, at the beginning of the year, as they start coming, I mean, they're year round. I mean, I thought in the winter they would go away, but they don't. They're here.
But on that,
Maybe
On
once
that-
a year check. or
on
something,
that note, when we did bring that up, the food trucks were just becoming popular.
Right.
And we wanted them to come in to help the businesses. But my personal opinion, I don't think we're gonna hurt the food trucks because many communities charge.
Okay.
Some type of fee, because if they weren't making any money, they ain't gonna come back, whether they're paying a fee or not paying a fee. You know what I mean?
So then the question is, do you want them to pay a fee every time they come? Or do you want them to just pay a fee for the year because they come back?
I don't know
over and
how
over
that
again?
works in other communities
Yeah, I
as
don't
far as
either.
monthly or.
Well, I think so we probably need to research what other communities charge because I don't know what other communities
Right.
charge. does the city, does Oakmont, does whoever
the
have
city there, I
a
think
fee?
they're like,
I believe Penn Hills does an annual fee.
Yeah,
right, because they at first, because they contacted me and I said, no, we're not charging now. They didn't, but like I said, the food trucks are making money at these establishments or else they wouldn't be back every week. So they are making money here. And so Penn Hills did implement a fee.
I think having anything other than an annual fee becomes a logistical nightmare because who's gonna run around and make sure that the fee's been collected every time they roll in?
Yeah, and I mean, my other question is, what would be the purpose of the fee?
It's probably to supplement anyone that has a business privilege tax or if they are brick and mortar paying tax. So if they're coming into the community and they're gonna be an asset or complementary to our businesses or our residences, then they're just paying that one-time fee, then they're participating in some way to pay into the community they're coming to. So if you pay it once and it's good for the whole year, then you pay it for the year. So if there's an event here and a wedding there and a car cruise, then they're
covered.
essentially extended as a participant of the Chamber of Commerce as having paid into the community. I would assume
Well,
that's the-
do brick and mortar stores pay some sort of?
For the chamber, to be a member of the chamber, they do.
But they don't have to pay. I mean,
They
they're not
don't have
forced to
to.
become a member of the
Right,
chamber.
that's true.
Well, we charge for the car cruise outside vendors to come to the car cruise,
Yeah.
vendors. If you're not a member of the chamber, it's $25. And I'm not saying to do that to the food trucks. I think there should be, like you said, an annual fee of something. I mean,
Well-
they do take up 1 or 2 parking spots in the community, in front of that establishment, in front of the business, truck trailer. A lot of times it's just the truck.
We charge an annual fee for the farmer's market too. for all the
Exactly.
vendors,
Yeah, I mean,
Exactly.
and I just want to make sure we're being consistent. Like if other, if most other communities in Allegheny County are not charging for food trucks or don't have a program in place, then not to say that we need to be like X, Y, or Z community, but if Verona gets tagged as, oh, there's a food truck fee, or they're going to come after you for a food truck fee, and they can go to other communities and draw a big crowd and avoid us, then I mean that there's got to be a balance, is what I'm saying. So
And it's probably a small enough community that everyone would know that we're charging too much or we're not charging
Yeah,
enough. So
I-
if we look at neighboring communities, we can see a fair assessment of what's normal to them, and then just do what they do.
and enforcement has to be considered, because you know, if we're going to add new fees or new I just think we need to be mindful of how it's going to be enforced. I mean, you know, are we going to have the resources to go around and check? Are we going to go police food trucks? And
Exactly.
Um,
And who's going to do
how
that?
are we going to deal with non-compliance?
Right.
So
So,
anyway,
Anyway.
this food trucks could be a separate
yeah.
meeting topic, but
Separate piece to
Anyway,
chew on.
more research needs to be done, get more input, maybe from the food trucks, food truck owners, not the trucks themselves. Anyway, yeah, thanks.
the other comment I had, so I haven't had a chance to look at this because I know Trish, you just sent this out a couple hours ago, but I thought that we had a comprehensive fee schedule that we passed like last fall. Does anyone?
Yeah, Craig passed that around, but all
Okay.
that was attached was BIU's fee schedule. There was nothing from our fee schedule,
Okay.
of our fee, of
Okay.
Verona's fees. Ergo, that's why this.
Okay.
Right, thanks, Lisa.
Oh, you know what you might be thinking of? There was a fee schedule prior to BIU that I had been having them work on for building permits and occupancy for when we had our in-house code enforcement person.
Okay.
We passed
Yeah,
that.
that would make sense.
Right, and then we adopted the BIU one, and that replaced what we had done the year before, 2 years before.
Okay. I was just,
Yeah,
I didn't have a chance to look into it. I just remembered that we had some sort of
Right.
fee schedule.
we did, we had a.
I didn't know if it was
right.
something different or this
We-
was replacing that. So
Right,
that's why I
so we
wanted to
had
just
our
clarify.
own fee schedule, then now BIU's fee schedule, but there's a lot of fees that aren't in the fee schedule.
And here's what
Yeah.
it says, the BIU is at the end,
Okay.
this attachment, which
Okay.
is smart.
Okay. Any other questions for right now?
Trish, may I ask a few questions on this? On the zoning hearing board. This is a legal procedure. And as such, you need a recorded record, you need a stenographer. Basically, you need a stenographer and you need transcripts. So, and I don't know, it says here that half of the stenographer's appearance costs will be taken over by the person requesting the hearing, if I read that right? In the paragraph, we're on section 3 about the paragraph below the prices, the cost, about 3 lines down. It says zoning hearing board members pursuant to the MPC, Verona Borough can change fees to cover costs associated with zoning hearing board members, compensation, notice and advertising costs, half of the stenographer appearance cost, and necessary administrative overhead costs associated with the hearing. That's a good way of controlling, like sometimes the hearings can get hours, and it's because the person asking for the hearing is talking that long. So that will control that, but then you need a transcript. You need transcript as a record of it for the borough, and probably somebody's lawyer is gonna want a transcript, and that's gonna cost. So you might want to stick that in there. If that's the way it's done here, you might do zoning hearing boards differently.
I think the transcript is in the last sentence. it says it will be the responsibility of the requesting party, but I did find this section a
Right.
little confusing.
Well, what if they don't want to give you the transcript or the borough, the transcript? That's the only thing. And the way you get around that, or you could get around it, is I've seen communities, in fact, one right next door, that charges $7.50 to request a hearing.
Period.
Yeah, and it's, yeah, period. It's no escrow, you don't get it back. That's what it goes for. And it's because of these costs. There's also advertising costs.
Mhm.
And you have the legal costs if your solicitor publishes those. So there's a whole bunch of what do I want to say? Hidden costs at a zoning hearing. In section 4, you talk about the UCC Board of Appeals, and section 5 is the International Property Maintenance. Does Verona have boards for those yet?
No, we do not.
We do, I don't think so.
Okay, it doesn't, I've only seen 2 ever come up in my life, but you may need it. So that's just
Strike
that.
it or fill it, are you saying?
Pardon me?
Strike these or fill these?
You have to have them. If anybody requests either of these, you need boards, and they may never meet, but you need to have somebody assigned to that.
Have you seen that combined with any other boards?
No.
Okay.
No.
No, because you need, isn't it usually people that are versed in the Uniform Construction Code?
Uniform Construction Code, zoning, planning. This is all out of the MPC. That's where you'll find this. And then on the last page with the our blessed multi-municipal lien letters. Right now, interest rates are great, but as soon as interest rates they're not that great, as soon as they go down, people are going to want to refinance. And you don't have to do the work for a refinance that you do for a lien letter. Supposedly, it's already been done. So
What section are you at?
last page. Oh, I'm sorry. The second to the last page,
Okay.
where it has section
Oh, I
14
get it.
right above there.
Mhm.
So you might want to think about that. The letter itself is basically the same. You just don't have to do the background work on it. You might want to charge 20 for a refinance. Something to think about.
So less for a refinance and more for selling. Mhm.
Yeah. And then tax certs, don't we have doesn't a company do that for us? Anybody who collects current taxes or Keystone,
We have Keystone, so would Keystone
they're just
handle that?
delinquent though, right?
No, Keystone is
Keystone-
current.
Current,
Yeah, they do
okay.
current.
Burkhart is
Burkhart,
delinquent.
They
yeah.
would be
Yeah.
responsible for that tax cert, or would have to call Keystone to verify it and then do a tax cert. We haven't done any, since I've been here, we have not done any tax cert. So my guess is the Keystone is
What
doing
is
them
a tax certification for?
to certify that you are current in your taxes.
Oh,
You have paid your property taxes
that'd be convenient to have.
or your EIT. I mean, Pennsylvania Municipal could do it for the ad valorem taxes, EIT, and the $10 a year tax, But at least I haven't been doing them, so I hope we haven't, we're not responsible for doing
No,
them.
that's what that last
I've
paragraph
screwed
in
up.
the lien letter is.
Okay.
That we don't, we're not responsible for knowing what the taxes are.
Okay. These documents are really, really tough to do. Almost as tough as Dave's street opening permit was, but not quite. But and you put them on a resolution because you're going to be changing them every year. So probably.
So Lisa, back up to section 3, were you suggesting any changes to the zoning hearing board as laid out?
Well, I would say either up your fee a lot to cover estimated costs. And because what can happen is the person loses during the hearing what they want and they're mad, so they're not going to pay. So you want to get a cost up front.
But isn't this saying it's a 150 non-refundable application fee plus the 850, which is like a deposit? So they'd
Yeah,
have to give you
the way that
$1,000.
it's worked
Yeah.
out to use that escrow fee
Yeah,
is good. I just,
so maybe if we spend $400 more, then they only get $450 back.
mhm, you could do it that way. It's another thing to keep track of though, as opposed to,
That's true.
and I don't know if you'll have this problem, but when people don't like what the building inspector says and they demand a zoning hearing, you can get into a lot of zoning hearings. And if they know that the fee is high for that, they're less inclined to be frivolous about their zoning hearing.
Got it.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So,
Good information.
Yeah, thanks, Lisa.
Thanks,
You're
Lisa.
welcome.
Thank you, Lisa.
well,
Any other lingering questions or comments on the updated resolution for fees? Great.
I'm assuming this will be a topic of conversation at the next ordinance meeting.
No doubt.
Okay.
Okay, so the second item under my agenda for tonight is a brief summary of the recommendations provided by an organization called the Local Technical Assistance Program. You may remember that Patrick Wright came all the way from Harrisburg on Friday, July 9th and spent 3 hours with Dr. Carpenter and myself touring our beautiful borough and checking out some of the recent problems and issues that have been raised, in particular in regards to parking and pedestrian safety. I wanted to note that there were a lot of ideas covered during this 3-hour tour, but I just tried to condense it to a few of those main problem areas, like I mentioned, that have been brought up recently. But I'm more than happy to talk to anyone offline if anyone wants to hear more about ideas or questions. I also recently forwarded Patrick's talk to all of council on parking issues. I'm happy to forward it to any member of the public. If you're interested, just let me know. Essentially, Patrick emphasized a 3-tiered approach, which focuses on education, enforcement, and engineering. So this is obviously the engineering piece, but that will not make up for good education and enforcement of these common traffic issues. And throughout everything, he emphasized just to try things as a trial. Nothing has to be set in stone. If it doesn't work, we can always have the flexibility to try something differently. So we started out that morning in the business district. So the good news is that Pennsylvania State Vehicle Code does provide quite a bit of flexibility with regards to how the borough can impose some parking restrictions. So you may recall that one of the requests recently brought up is for additional 30-minute parking spots to be added along the business district here, particularly along East Railroad. So there actually is at least one other sign that we found on our tour that has a similar sign. This one outside Patsy's indicates 20-minute parking. It's difficult to see, but it says during business hours only. So Patrick really advised against having that ambiguity in the language for these signs. He generally supports the idea of adding a few of these signs. And again, we can always do this as a trial, but definitely to add specific hours. So for example, Gloria's was one of the businesses that had requested it. I think we thought there may be interest from Eiler's Hardware and possibly others of adding these signs, but definitely to also include the specifics as to which days and which times as well are considered business hours. Next, as an idea to help alleviate some of the parking issues in the business district is just to better utilize our municipal lots, which I think we may informally do, but we still have a lot of signs that say things like, again, I apologize, it's a little hard to see, but borough business only, no indication of hours. So that kind of implies that all the time no one should be parked here. And often on the weekends, you will see our lots are largely empty due to law-abiding citizens, but people are taking up all the spaces along the East Railroad here. So one thing that he proposed is just to revise those signs to say, and again, we have 3 borough lots that we can better utilize to perhaps borough business or permit only, Monday through Friday during business hours. We can talk about if we want to say something different on Thursdays for the farmers market. Also of note that many of our signs in our borough are red and yellow. Those are not compliant colors as per Pennsylvania Vehicle Code. He suggested going to be compliant red and white when we roll out these new signs. Also, I wanted to point out, perhaps someone with more years here in the borough can explain if this sign needs to stay, but we have a sign on the borough garage here. It says no turning around in parking lot. We actually probably should allow turning around in the parking lot to just, again, better alleviate the traffic congestion and help with flow if someone is using the municipal lot during the weekend hours or just needs to rearrange. Yes, Mayor.
That is, I believe, right out here in front of the,
Yes.
because the reason why they put that there because of the police cars are there. Somebody's gonna end up hitting a car.
Okay,
And people coming in and out, it's not a turnaround.
gotcha.
We don't encourage people turning around.
I think that one's by the street garage, Mayor.
No, he's right. It's right to the right of where the police cars would normally line up.
Oh,
Yes.
okay, sorry.
But perhaps if there is another one, we could take a look at that one. Just a suggestion, but thank you for that additional background information. Another thing that's been coming up a lot in various discussions, both on Parks and Rec and of course in council, is the lack of ADA accessible parking spots. So I've been told that this area here near the corner of East Railroad and Center may have had an ADA accessible spot at one point. I do see our newly marked crosswalk here, which is beautiful. But we may want to consider adding a handicap accessible spot here, or perhaps one in the lot closest to the crosswalk there.
There is one at the corner by the hula bar, right where whoever that is standing. It still should be there.
No, I don't believe that's there, but that's the one I hear was there.
It was there then.
It was there.
Because I know I've told another business that they need to, they would bring a truck and trailer in, and I said they can't park the truck there because the handicap spot. You know, and they would have the trailer, you know, for the business there. So I don't know what happened to that.
So we should confirm that we're not crazy and it's not there, and perhaps consider revisiting why that was removed and adding that back. Because I think it would be a well-utilized spot for those who
Most
need
definitely,
it.
most definitely. We try to put them at every corner. You know, if you,
Right.
yeah,
Right, that's what Patrick was recommending.
yes.
Yeah. So great. So one other thing that came up that Madam President and I noted is that we do have these lovely rectangular spaces on some but not all streets. So we have them on East Railroad and along Allegheny River Boulevard. Might be nice to consider extending them onto both Center and South, since that's a continuation of the downtown business district. Additionally, many of our crosswalks are faded throughout the borough. So Patrick recommended planning for an annual remarking of all crosswalks, at least if they're using a water-based paint. But I think regardless, many of ours are still in need of some updating. It might be good to do before the start of the school year. Because in addition to the business district, the school zone ones are quite faded as well.
Trish, just let you know that I did talk to AJ about that. And I just said, you know, put it on your to-do list, and except for the main road, which we don't want to do ARB, but the intersections with Center and South, because whenever PennDOT does what they do, then they'll redo them. But everywhere else, so, you know, I know he was busy today on North, so, but I think I think he has it on his list, so.
And what did you say about ARB, about them?
Do you want to tell, Patrick said, don't do the main intersections at ARB and Center and ARB and South because they're PennDOT roads. And when they're going to come in and redo them, they put the crosswalks in. So you don't want to put them in and then have them
We
put
are
them in.
responsible for doing them. We've always put them in.
So I think what Patrick said was to consider holding off what you want until PennDOT does their major renovations. But I think we could still go through and remark them as we have done, suggesting.
Are they planning on redoing the road? Is that what he's saying?
So that's a question I haven't for the longer term discussion is we need to find out, as ARB, as many are aware, is in pretty rough shape. So it's likely on PennDOT's plan to do some paving soon. So if there is a contact, he suggested the liquid fuels contact may be a good place to start to find out when any of this potential work could happen. So that way we would not incur
I
the
mean,
cost.
definitely South Avenue has to be done in ARB before school starts, lines,
Oh, the lines,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay,
crosswalk lines.
great.
Especially south,
Right,
center, the kids don't generally,
exactly,
Billy's down at this corner.
right.
Yeah, that sounds good. Okay, so next we took Patrick to Riverbank Park, where many of you have also heard about the parking wars since the addition of our much utilized pickleball courts. I copied a diagram that Jeff Pepper had sent all of council about 2 months ago. We reviewed this with Patrick. Patrick does support the idea of adding marked spaces along Arch Street across from Riverbank Park, including an edge along the grass to discourage the parking off of the residents' grass in that area. He also did like the idea that Ray suggested about using flexible delineator posts, in particular the white ones with reflectors, to help to further emphasize the border where the grass begins and meets the road. Also, again, this has been brought up by Janet with some of the requirements that we're still lacking at Riverbank Park, the lack of ADA accessible parking spots. So Patrick just suggested using the central most easily accessible parking spot to the park as our ADA accessible spot. So we thought that the one Mr. Pepper had originally indicated, kind of in the center where the grade isn't as steep as the centers by the basketball courts, might be the best spot to indicate for that. Another thing that Mr. Pepper had suggested is reserving these 2 yellow spots on the end as dedicated playground visitor spots. Patrick said that is certainly, again, something that we may want to consider running on a trial basis. Of course, we're going to run into the issue of how do we enforce this, but it may be something to try to help alleviate some of this tension. So additionally, we talked about extending the marked parking spaces beyond just the section across from the park and further down Arch Street into this area here, possibly as far down as 10.7 in the Moose, which also have their own share of parking issues, particularly on the weekend, as well as on these perpendicular streets. This is Fairfield right here that could benefit from having some of these spots as well. Another thing that Patrick emphasized was the opportunity for shared opportunities with parking. So for example, could we talk to the Moose to see if during non-Moose hours, they would be okay with park users utilizing their lot? I'm just throwing out there as a suggestion. I thought the idea of sharing spaces maybe made sense as we continue to add businesses and in this case, increase our park usage, which is great, but we just want to make sure that we can support everyone in their cars.
I just have one question about this section. I can't tell from this picture and I can't remember, but if you have that handicap there and the sidewalk to get into the park is down the street, I don't know that there's another concrete path entryway. I just thought having handicap right, where the cement is, where the path is, if someone's in a wheelchair or something like that, that it would, rather than them having a wheel down the block.
No, that's a good point. Yeah, probably then this space would be the better one.
Okay, because it's over there.
Yeah, because this one by the basketball court is the one with the really steep grade.
I see what you're saying. Well, yeah, I see. So have it down there at the end so that they can get into the park without having to go up a hill. I'm just suggesting, it's different for someone who's walking, it's different, but my experience is I deal with someone in a wheelchair. And so this is, I think of it.
Down at the very beginning, it's a little flatter because then the road starts to crown,
Right,
as you go more towards the stop sign.
right.
So you're suggesting this?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a more flatter.
Yeah, I agree with that. Does anyone else have any comments or thoughts on?
Those are 8 foot by 20 foot spots for each of them?
Yes. Well, this drawing is approximate,
Sure.
but that should be.
It would be. And then the flexible delineator posts that you show in the grass, that is essentially we are allowed from the center of the road to where this post would be, we can place those there just like a stop sign or any other sign. And then the property owner still mows and weeds, but they don't remove them, those are ours. It's not their discretion, it's the borough's.
Correct, although I was going to propose towards the end that we still go through and get some resident feedback on if they like this plan, if they like the posts or not.
It should be helpful for them, you would think, so it should be
Yes.
like a benefit.
Definitely.
The only other question I have is on that picture, if you go back, is that large rectangular black space, is that a dumpster? Or is that part of a building? Because that's municipal property where, yeah, so that's what I'm gonna be looking at with Matt coming up soon. When I talk about footprint, like we might have, I don't know, I'm not saying this is gonna happen. We might have 6 or 8 parking spots there that could be with, taking a look at as a footprint that we could maybe seed part of it, I don't know. Seed part of it, have head-in parking, and then still have what we need for the space off on the side.
That's fenced in to keep it.
Correct, so if it's been fencing since the 80s, but maybe we take a look at it, in the 80s, there wasn't a pickle fence or pickleball court, there weren't these other things. We might find that there's actually making both sides happy, where you have the recreational space made available, off-street parking on the property we own, and then the residents will see alleviation of people parking on the street there.
I think that black square that you see used to be a garage. That's
That
no
was the old
longer
boat
there.
garage.
Right.
That's what we talked about last meeting?
Yeah,
This is the old,
Yeah, the
but
boat garages, they tore that down and we put the boat over in the other garage.
So what is that rectangular black surface?
Flat piece of concrete right now.
It's just a pad.
Yeah,
Right,
the garage was tore down.
but
But-
see, the other thing too, Joe, is that the yard can get busy at times too, they dump the stuff.
the dumpsters
There's a
in there.
dumpster in
Sure,
there.
yeah.
But yeah, I understand what you're saying.
I think just asking the question, if it's a no, it's a no,
Right.
but if we have a
An
treasure
option.
of 8 parking spots that are coveted, it might be helping in addition to this, that we reassess our footprint.
Yeah.
If not, then we don't.
There's 3 parking places outside the fence there that were recently painted in, giving 3 spots.
Yes.
Right where she has the arrow right
Thank you for
now.
pointing that out. That is
Yeah.
not indicated here, but we
Yeah.
did add those 3.
And how often is the fire department using this space over there, Ray? More of a storage,
In the garage?
just in general, like is there access in and out of there a lot with the fire department?
No, not generally.
More of
That's-
an AJ's team?
The garage, it's a double door garage. Left side's the borough, the right side's the fire department. We built a wall down the middle. The right side is all our 2 boat trailers, our 2 boats, and various hoses and stuff like that, storage for us. We made that kind of agreement with the borough when they tore that old garage down.
Any other questions or comments? Next, I have just a very basic depiction from another neighboring, well, not neighboring, but another community that Patrick has worked in, just showing some basic lines we could do. I know Mr. Pepper is very adamant that we should make these spaces along people's garages where people tend to park, and they are obviously not allowed to, very obvious with a lot of lines, but Patrick kind of suggested the simple approach at first and just see how it does, because it's much easier to just add things down the road if it's not working. So this is just an example of some lines. Obviously, as we talked, we have grass to the road, so we would want something here, so we would probably do the full rectangle, but if we wanted to do something to indicate the various garages, we could just do a corner like that, or something similar to what they did on North recently, which is just the area along the curb area itself. So other priority items to address. After we were done at Riverbank Park, we took Patrick on a tour throughout town, just to some various streets as they kind of popped up in our head. One that has come up in the past is the absence of a double line on Wildwood. So you may note that when it becomes Penn Hills, there is the double line, but Verona has not continued that double line. So Patrick did verify that actually with our ADT, which he was able to provide, it's about 4,580 cars daily, approximately. Anything over 4,000 for a road that size does need the double lines as per, actually, I believe that was a national requirement. So we will want to highlight that as an item to add in the very near future. Other higher priority items it is a state law that we actually need to include the fines for parking in ADA accessible spots. You'll notice ours throughout town are lacking that, but they should have this signage added at the bottom. And those are PA standard fines, so they're very easy to get and add to these signs. I mentioned earlier that our colors, any of the red and yellow signs, should be pulled and replaced with ones that are compliant with the state code. But we also do have a few signs you'll see here. Perhaps you've noticed them in the business district that say no parking Tuesday 5 a.m. to 7:30 p.m., which is obviously a misprint. So we'll want to flag those.
I'm sure that's not for street sweeping.
Yeah, but it says 7 PM
Instead of a.m.
Oh.
That's 14 hours.
hours.
of
Working all
street
day.
Wasn't it Borough Code or, didn't the Commonwealth say you had to have a staggered upgrade to all signs from like 2018, 2019, 2020? That this should have all been done already?
I don't know.
I don't know, Patrick just mentioned, it's possible.
I think there was an adoption period where you're supposed to phase out signs, so it wasn't hit all in one cost, but municipalities should have been updating so that there's consistency to avoid the gold on red, the blue stop signs, whatever you had that was old, you were supposed to have phased out a couple of years ago. So these are probably a very high priority.
Yeah, didn't hear about that.
Yes, definitely a high priority. Another thing that was mentioned by Patrick that I thought was interesting is related to the area of enforcement. Obviously, it's difficult for our police to enforce all these areas all the time. Apparently, when we post the signs that say your speed is, that actually collects data. So we could set up those signs for a week and then be able to see when the peak times are that people are approaching or exceeding the speed limit and thereby target our enforcement of these areas. So that would be a very beneficial approach, as I believe we have at least one of these signs. So yes, a tool we already have.
One question about Wildwood before you move on. So if you're coming down from the island on 2nd and you're going towards Allegheny River Boulevard, we need to have the double lines. At what point on that stretch of Wildwood can you park on the side of the street? Or can you on any of it?
Down by the Jeep dealership, the old Jeep dealership, on that side of the street, all the way down to almost to the police station, right? Little past those apartments
I
there.
don't know. That's always been a.
Yeah, but they do park there.
Is there an opportunity to paint it, is what I'm getting to, so that if we double stripe, so there's a center line, and then it's not ambiguous of like who's crossover? Because I think the seams in the concrete are like thirds, so you don't know whose side's what. So if there's a defined center line that we have to do, there might be parking spots also that we'd see that are by the car dealership, by the restaurant, and by the brewery, that people would then know, because it's lit now, there's new LEDs over there.
Well, they're not allowed to park up that far, from, like right in front of the building where the old Jeep dealership was and Caveman Signs. They parked on the street, and right there where you see the picture on the left there. So far down.
Well, however far it is, I think it'd be nice to know, because it might be with just markings, we gain again a couple more parking spots for people to use for our business district on that stretch.
I can definitely ask Patrick about that. I'm sure he could pull that quickly.
Well, and to that point, Joey, like you're saying parking on one side but not on the other, which may affect where we stripe it.
Correct. So if we can understand if, maybe for years past, I don't know historically like where it was, but maybe we used to have people park on one side. People did, but it was avoided on the other side. If you could choose either side, then maybe, yes, you do have the center line where it's off center one direction, then you paint parking for a number of spots on one side or the other. Or alternate, I don't know. But I think it's a good question to ask if we're going to paint a center line. Don't just simply paint divided by the width of the road and then not take advantage of the space for parking that might be there to help benefit the restaurant, the pickle company, the brewery, the car dealership.
Yeah, because I think is there a sidewalk only on one side there?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So that might determine where we'd want to.
And it goes up to the bus stop as well. So far there's sidewalk, then it stops, and then it's grass.
Yeah.
And then, even if you were to paint, I don't want to say a bike lane, that's not what it is, but if you were to paint on the shoulder, just like a 4 foot width or something for someone to then walk where it's yellow to get to the bus stop, anyways, just tackling
Yeah.
that with the question, he probably knows all these things. He can probably help assist us, and it's just a matter of buying gallons of paint.
Yeah, and whatever he can't help us with, or maybe some of the details Matt might be able to help with as far as laying out. Like, yeah, I agree. There needs to be a layout. If we're gonna double yellow the center line, there needs to be a layout of, and not just, straight down the middle of the width.
Yeah, so for anyone who is wondering what is going on with that single center line on center, that actually does not require a line of any sort. The single line is not a real designation, so he advises just to let that fade with time. But as I mentioned, we did visit a couple other areas that I couldn't include them all. Another one perhaps worth mentioning is the public docks. Parking there is kind of haphazard at best. So it may be worth looking into designating where the public parking is to access the public docks. I want to move on though to longer term items to address. So I know several years ago there was a wonderful project that really revitalized our downtown area, and among other things included new sidewalks. Patrick commented a lot on the sidewalks, so that is a wonderful thing that we do have. However, there is an abrupt ending to the sidewalks, and this is the intersection of Center and ARB. And I don't know if it's clear, but there's frequently people who walk in the middle of the road, often people who maybe have some accessibility issues. And this is still, a very busy street. So I think high priority for longer term is definitely looking to continue the sidewalk work that was done into some of these other well-traveled areas, especially for anyone who's trying to perhaps get to the business district or to the bus lines. Another thing of note is our crosswalks actually aren't the latest versions. So the latest versions that we should have would include a countdown that would make it a little bit safer for pedestrians to know how much time they have before they were crossing. And currently ours do not have that. Also, some of ours are lacking the audible noise that should be present whenever you press the button. In particular, this button here has the tactile feeling of when you do push it, but there is no sound to accompany that.
If I'm not mistaken, those lights were installed, 5 years ago, maybe?
Was it even that long?
Yeah, PennDOT is the one that controlled that, putting the pedestrian walkway, button. So that would be on PennDOT, not on Verona.
No, I wasn't suggesting it's on
No,
Verona, but
I know, I'm just saying,
yeah,
how
did that
speaking
happen?
out.
Because actually the one that's more surprising is here with Wildwood that also does not have the countdown. That one's even more recent.
But
Maybe Matt can look into that.
Right,
Yeah,
Matt
that
was,
should be on PennDOT for not
yeah.
upgrading it when they put it in the first place.
he was
you know.
coordinating all of that work, Matt was, so he'll remember
I'm just
why.
throwing that out there.
There's some reason why we didn't get longer time or.
We did talk about
Yeah.
that. Yeah, there was a traffic study that indicated we didn't need the full four-way stop among other scenarios that were
Yeah.
considered, but
Yeah.
Patrick is very insistent we should at least have a countdown.
Mm.
So I will reach out to Matt. Thank you.
Mhm.
Other longer term suggestions. I think we may have an in with someone who works for Port Authority because he indicated that bus stops should all have shelter and benches. Some of them have benches sort of nearby because they were part of this downtown revitalization, but they're not immediately at bus stops where again, we do have many people with accessibility issues who could benefit from having a bench as they're waiting for the bus, as well as the lack of shelter. The only Verona bus stop with a shelter, I believe, is at Gecko. So perhaps our contact can help us.
So to speak to that, so the one, you're correct. The only official bus shelter is by Gecko. The one in front of the church bazaar, you can actually stand under their awning and it's sheltered, and I do that frequently. The issues with shelters and benches, so it gets hairy because Port Authority has in some cases provided the shelters and the benches, but Port Authority typically doesn't own the land which they're placed on. So it requires, coordination or help from either the borough or the property owner to make that happen. But if that's something that someone wants to look into, I can put you in contact with the person at Port Authority that coordinates those.
What
I
about
know
the Second and Wildwood, because it's open air. Is that something? that
Second
we
and
approach
Wild-
with the
so-
shelter
the one
Across from the island?
across from the island.
That might be Penn Hills.
That's Penn Hills.
Someone owns, so like, we couldn't just go to Port Authority and say, Port Authority, put a shelter there, and they say, okay. They might have a shelter available potentially that could be used, but someone owns that property. Like, you would need enough room. You're either gonna be within the right of way of the roadway, in which case it's the municipality or PennDOT. I think that's actually, it gets into county road
Might be county.
territory, yeah. So that one's a little bit hairy, because it's where County Road and Borough Road meet. And
It's a nice
and
spot, but I think for, our residents walk there or our residents use it. So is it just a matter of asking and like submitting, like this is our spot?
Well,
They-
so like what I'm saying is that Port Authority could assist with potentially getting a shelter or a bench there, but it's not just up to Port Authority, because if it's within the right of way of the roadway, the municipality be us, or the county would have a say, or if it's on private property, then the property owner would have a say in allowing that. You know what I mean? So it's bus stops are really hairy that way, in that they often encompass both public land, private land, or public roadway right away, and then Port Authority's the agency providing the bus service that is, you know what I mean? So I'm not saying it can't be done. I'm just saying it's not a simple request a bus stop, get a shelter gets dropped out of the sky. So as much as it would be great for that to happen.
It's never that easy. Okay.
All right, well, yeah, that would be great. Again, I have it kind of as a longer term item to address, but that would definitely be a wonderful benefit to our community, and it definitely would help encourage public transit, perhaps even more. We already mentioned that we have on our longer term list to find out somehow when PennDOT may repave ARB and see what we might consider with that. One thing that he mentioned as we were driving by, so I apologize, I don't have a picture, but he mentioned we may want to consider when we have these repavings, perhaps closing the outlet that goes onto Jones Street, because as far as traffic from ARB, it really doesn't have a real function, since you can access everything otherwise, and it can be very detrimental to pedestrians in that area who are traversing, to suddenly have these cars kind of pulling in and out, and it's just kind of a difficult area for vehicles to see. So I just kind of wanted to throw that out there to see if that's something that we thought would be good or bad. Mayor? You have the contemplative like chin
No.
scratching.
Well, no, you're talking about that little cutoff.
Oh,
Wait, which cutoff?
when
I'm
you're coming
confused.
down ARB right by the carpet store, you're talking about that
Yeah.
cutoff? Yeah, there's always a bunch of political signs
Little
there.
cutoff
Yeah,
Yeah,
on
I
Jo-
use
on
it all the
Jones Street.
time.
Everybody uses it.
Yeah,
I'm just confused how that would help pedestrian safety, because there's no sidewalks.
Yeah.
The sidewalks on the other side of,
So the sidewalks are, I think it might be, there's like a driveway, so it just something to consider to further improve pedestrian safety in that area by removing the addition of traffic kind of coming in at that area, potentially into the driveway while you're crossing.
See, the other
Maybe
thing
intake
too,
of Jones, maybe it's the intake, the other side. Versus, because there's two entrances to Jones.
yeah,
Yes.
that one, that's what I was thinking at first, because if you're walking from the post office to Giant Eagle, for instance, crossing there, it's kind of blind, and
That one totally.
yeah, are you sure that's not the one that did Patrick bring this up, or?
Yeah, Patrick brought it up. I was pretty sure it was the one further down, but I can verify.
Yeah, because I'm just struggling to, I'm all about improving pedestrian safety, especially along Jones Street, but I'm just, that second outlet or the second turn into Jones from ARB where the political signs usually are, I just don't really see how that would
I don't
affect
see a major
pedestrian
pedestrian
safety.
issue there.
Yeah, because pedestrian,
You
And
should-
I can't see shutting that other intersection down.
I can
No.
see them maybe pulling out from Jen Street onto ARB. Sometimes that is distracting. Yeah.
that's confusing too.
In turn, I think onto Jen Street, but coming out, I think that's where there is maybe more of an issue for drivers, you know, because.
Definitely for drivers, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that intersection is definitely a
Are
A
you
goofy
talking about
one.
where it says right turn only?
yeah.
Yeah, because then you don't know if they refer to Jones Street or ARB or both.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I'm just gonna kind of leave this as an area flagged for
Yeah.
potential
Yeah.
improvements, whenever this eventual
Okay.
upgrade would happen that we could capitalize on. You also mentioned the Jones Street would actually be a prime candidate for speed humps, not to be confused with the illegal speed bumps, but speed humps. They're the wider one that are safer for EMTs and trucks and whatnot, but would still have the improvement on traffic calming.
Where's he suggesting that on Jones
Right
Street?
in front of your place.
They need them down there, trust me.
He didn't suggest anywhere in particular. We'll lean on, your ideas and the ideas of anyone who uses this area.
Right, put that sign up to see how fast people are going to different spots and actually survey that for, a couple stretches.
Yeah, we can definitely do a data-driven approach.
okay.
Okay, and lastly, I don't know why this came up, but he said you should really have street cleaning after garbage pickup, which I just thought was brilliant, so I just included that there.
It's way easier said than done,
They come all different hours throughout the time.
but it's not, that's just that street cleaning's not on Thursday. It's on
Right.
Tuesday and Wednesday, the day before garbage pickup.
Different days.
But in order to change it, we'd have to change every
All the
single
signs.
sign.
Can we just change our contract for collection next time we can, or work with them to move pickup day?
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be
That'd be
easier.
easier.
Way easier.
Yeah, that'd be easier.
Hmm.
But they only street clean on one side one day and the other side on the other day.
But I mean,
Easier approach is by the collection agency that we use every 2, 3, 4 years.
yeah.
Anyway,
Good
So,
suggestion there for the city.
Yes, many suggestions. So the action items I've highlighted from our discussion tonight is getting a little bit more information on Wildwood with regards to parking, since we will need to add that double line soon. I made a lot of suggestions for signage and remarking crosswalks. I'm just gonna rely on the appropriate committees to figure out timelines and things for that. I did mention that I wanted to do a resident survey to get resident buy-in regarding the potential changes adjacent to Riverbank Park, including the plastic delineator stakes, as well as adding those spots. And I don't know, but it may be a good idea to maybe survey the businesses too, to see if anyone else wants to take advantage of this 30-minute parking spot. Am I missing any major items that anyone has in their minds?
So the 30-minute parking spot, I'm a little concerned that might turn into a slippery slope if every business wants a 30-minute parking sign in front of their house or in front of their business. It's just going to create more parking wars.
It needs to be intermittent, I think, cover everybody, and just be known that it is for all.
I think also if we start giving each individual business their own parking spot, then everybody's gonna want a parking
Well,
spot.
that's what I'm saying. I
Same
mean,
thing.
it's,
We start thinking about like Eilers or Gloria's or somewhere else, you're gonna create an issue, I think.
yeah, I don't, during business hours, normal business hours, I mean,
The street parking's public.
yeah,
It's not like even in front of your house. That in front of my house is a courtesy that I park there.
yeah,
Somebody can park there.
Exactly.
There's not a dang thing you can do.
yeah, exactly.
You know?
I
So-
think as long as ADA access,
Right.
there's an appropriate number of ADA spots, and that to me is really the bigger concern than giving individual business owners a 30-minute spot in front of their business, because it's going to end up pushing parking issues to other businesses and push,
There's gonna be signs everywhere.
well, there's going to be signs everywhere. And then if everyone's driving around looking, well, I can't park there because I'm not going to that business, and I can't park there because I'm not going to the
Right.
back there, then
What do they want to come to Verona for?
yeah, everyone else is parking, halfway down to the canoe clubs. And so I don't think it should be specific to certain businesses. If we need to put in a loading zone here and there because someone has deliveries that they need to be right in front of their business, or ADA access, I just fail to see why we would need to do these regularly.
We could do a generalized approach. I mean, we could go to meters, but
Don't we have 2-hour parking?
We do. We have 2-hour
Yeah.
parking.
Go and get your hair done somewhere, or you get your nails done, if you're
Yeah.
gonna be there a little bit longer than 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then you were gonna run into trouble.
Yeah.
I think just, well, I don't know.
So I
think
am
keep it-
hearing that we definitely have a mix of service businesses that are shorter visits, as well as restaurants, breweries, and bars that are longer visits, and they're all intermixed, and that's what's creating this problem. But I think this is something to consider. We don't have to decide tonight, that's why I'm presenting at workshop, but we have heard from, I've heard from more than one business that this would help their business. Eilers in particular is actually saying that the residents will park along that street because it's less congested than their the smoke shop around the boulevard. So it's a whole host of ones, but we definitely want it to be consistent and easy. So we can discuss further.
Okay.
Well, parking issues are never easy.
Parking
what I
issues
found.
are a
Maybe
pain
by the
in
lot
the neck,
So-
between the churches are and, where the,
Tollers used
yeah,
to,
where Fertilus was torn down,
Sherry owns that.
Sherry owns that. I
We
mean,
tried
there
to
was
buy
a-
that, I
We
think,
tried
at one
to,
time.
yeah.
There was an idea years back to purchase that lot and make it into.
Maybe we can
a borough
revisit that.
parking. Then maybe that's something we can look at down the
We
road.
even tried to get a
There's a
grant
grant
for
or
that
something that we
parking.
can acquire.
I don't think
Make
she
it-
wants to sell, she probably don't want to sell it.
Well, we don't know that right now.
Well, that's
but,
true.
It's just a thought.
Well, I mean, you're at one extreme or the other. I mean, you could put up metered parking and charge people a quarter for 15 minutes, or you could have it as it is now free, but just allow people to kind of self-police and just be good neighbors and park for the time you're there and then move on. But if you're gonna go business to business over the years from now moving forward, you're gonna have to adjust so many times, not make anyone.
You're gonna have
happy.
more headaches than what you have now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so there's gotta be a
Absolutely.
happy medium. I think that council's heard a lot of people's suggestions or complaints or issues, but it's probably just an easy solution with just simple signage, but not in front of every single business. It's just suggested within the business district to say whatever it is. And if it's client unloading zone, or if it's 30-minute or 60-minute or whatever it is parking, if it's gonna be done like that, I think it should be more broad versus posted in front of an address.
Mhm.
I agree.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I just wanted to emphasize as well that, again, Patrick said, don't be afraid just to try something. So if we wanted to try this at one spot or two spots, see if it erupts in wars or not. If it does, we can just pull it back. It doesn't have to be anything that's done forever. Also, there are many wonderful classes through LTAP available for council, of course, as well as for staff like DPW. They want to learn how to do traffic studies and whatnot. And again, if anyone from the public wants to learn more about that, I'm happy to share the slides. So if there's no other questions or comments, that's all I have for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Sečovic.
I brought up a couple meetings ago about the incident at the one bar. And I talked to the individual that pulled the CPR and did all that work. And he does not and will not show up for any recognition. He doesn't want that. He's not that type of guy. He just did what he did, so just wanted to report that doesn't look like that's gonna happen.
Mhm.
I talked to Matt today about a resident called me about a tree. He wants to get taken down. And it's between the sidewalk, or it's between the curb and the sidewalk in the grassy area. But Matt answered the question, and it's pretty much, he has to go through the Shade Tree Commission now, I guess, to get a tree cut down. So he has to get the approval from the Shade Tree Commission. And it's at his cost. It's not at the borough cost.
Right. That's what
So,
I thought.
so that's just,
Yeah, even though it's in the right of way.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
So I called that individual, today and told him. The only other thing I have for the fire department is we've been doing every Saturday in July. And this Saturday, I should have mentioned it before, this Saturday will be the last Saturday from 10 until 2 at the fire station. We're doing the collecting toys for tots in July. And we've had a nice turnout from the community bringing some toys. And once we get it all together, this Saturday will be the last day, 10 to 2. It's a fire station.
So
Now, we'll drop the toys off up at, I think we take them somewhere in the Trona Heights.
what are the requirements for the toys that are donated?
I think they just have to be in new packages. I
They
don't
have
think
to be
there's any-
new?
Yeah, you can't drop off somebody's used toy.
No, but what about like stuffed animals that aren't in a package?
I believe they're okay as long as they got like a ticket on, the tag on them or something new.
Okay,
Yeah, they don't want used stuff.
yeah,
Now,
okay,
again, we gotta police ourselves too.
yeah.
I'm not taking a 5-year-old.
No, I
used-
know,
You're
yeah.
right.
But I have some new stuff that's not packaged, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think they wanted packaged, but if it was never packaged, and
Yeah,
it's still new and it's still got the tags, that's fine.
okay,
And they're up there from 10 to 2 this Saturday. That'll be the last Saturday.
okay, thank you.
That's all I have. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Janet Elbow, thank you.
Thank you. I have a little cribs update. It's come along just about done, I think. We did get a little email from Matt earlier stating that there was an issue with the urinal and one of the valves there that wasn't right and was broken, so they need to reorder that. I know the stalls are installed in the bathrooms. The picnic tables did come in, so they were on back order, so they arrived. Different appliances have arrived as well. I haven't heard though, waiting to hear on that, if the county came and approved the plumbing yet. They still need to certify the plumbing. I think once that's done, then we're to go. We'll be able to open it up and get keys and be able to use it. So
Looks nice.
it does. It looks beautiful. The bathrooms are really, really nice inside.
Janet, do you know if those cameras are up and running at the bathroom, near the bathrooms?
Right. I know there was some things with Comcast. I don't know if they're up and running yet or not.
Because I would highly recommend not to open the bathrooms until those cameras are up and running for safety reasons for the
Sure.
children.
Just in coordination with Chris, RAA did have that 10-year-old tournament, not this weekend, but the weekend before last. And I did get a little email from Josh Sprague saying, just to fill you in, Riverview won at Cribs that night under the lights, and it did rain. They won 2-1. They did call the game, but Riverview did win. He said a lot of Verona residents came out to watch, and it was awesome. Lots of compliments on how nice the fields in the town are. Thanks again. Tonight was a shining moment for Verona. And then he also sent me the following morning, dear Janet, good morning. I just wanted to take a moment to express our sincere gratitude to the Verona Public Works crew. They turned Cribs into a fantastic baseball destination for our tournament game on Friday, June 16th. We received plenty of compliments on the field for one and how nice a place Verona is. Thanks for all of our hard work. Hats off to everyone who pulled this together for us. Sincerely, Josh Sprague. So I thought that was really nice. And I did pass it on to AJ and the guys too, because they did do a great job of that. And our next movie in Railroad Park is going to be Cars 3. It'll be on August 13th, the night before the car cruise. So hopefully the weather cooperates and it'll be a nice turnout for the movie.
It will be nice that weekend.
Yes, it will.
Yeah, deemed it
Yeah,
so.
Special weekend to me too, so.
Joe
hopefully,
said it
yeah.
would.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Thanks, Janet. If you could pass that over to
Certainly will.
Sylvia. I just also wanted to give a shout out to Parks and Rec Board, because I think they help contribute to the field being really good too, and to Tim and Vince and all the work you guys do for
Yeah.
that.
Good stuff.
Yeah, thanks. Go ahead. Sylvia, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam President, and good evening, everyone. We'll start with newsletter. We're currently working on the autumn issue, and that's going to cover October, November, and December. So it is really kind of mandatory that we get these articles and the ads in by September 1st. And we actually would prefer to have the ads and the articles 1 week prior to September 1st, if that's at all possible. This is a holiday issue, and it's including Halloween, Thanksgiving, and Christmas. And there's just gonna be a lot that's going to be in there. We'd like to get it in early, and with the 150th coming up, there just might be a few things that might have to go under the wire to get in. So please, as a committee person and with the rest of our committee, we really would like to have the ads as soon as possible. And we thank you in advance for that. I spoke with President Kevin Ewing this morning, and the Kennywood ticket sale went very, very well. It was a success. And we'd like to thank John Henry at the Verona News for handling the sale of the tickets. John, you're a great guy, and we really appreciate you. Thank you so much. Also, there will be no meeting, a Chamber of Commerce meeting in the month of August. So that'll resume again in September. And also, Kevin said, please remind everybody about the silver anniversary car cruise, which we had already talked about, but he said, don't forget, remind everybody Saturday, August 14th. That is the 25th year, and congratulations to Dave and our former man, that was your buddy.
Lou
Race, yes.
Mhm.
He played a big part also.
Yes, he did, yes. So thanks to you, Dave, and of course to Lou. Historical Society, the next trip is scheduled for August, and it will be at the Clayton House. Details will be announced. And if you have any further questions, please feel free to call Rhoda Wharf at 412-828-360, 828-3607. Twin Barrow Ministries, the community dinner will be tomorrow evening at Verona Methodist Church from 4:30 to 6:30, and it'll be hosted by the Oaklawn Presbyterian Church. This will be a grab and go dinner, and of course, as Nancy mentioned, next month, we here on council will be the host for the dinner. So to you, Shirley, and all your helpers, thank you for all that you do. You are greatly appreciated. Today, I also spoke with A-Long, and I wanted to see if there was anything I needed to announce. They actually have nothing going on at this time. Just said send best regards to Verona Borough, and we'll be in touch if there's anything else going on. Are there any questions or comments? Hearing none, that concludes my report, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Sylvia. Anything from COG? Okay.
No, the next meeting's tomorrow night.
Okay.
So
All right. So at this point, can you turn that off, Sylvia? Turn that up here. Give it to Dave. There you go. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Council will hear comments on public related items at this time. Please approach the podium or raise your virtual hand. Clearly state your name and address and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Oh my goodness.
Nope.
Is there a hand?
got one, Rhea.
Okay. Okay, go ahead. Reyes up first?
Yep.
Okay, go ahead, Rhea. Oh.
Sorry, I was muted. I muted myself. I just really quickly, I wanted to just share my contact information if anyone would like to be involved in helping to create the native green space at Selden Avenue, whether it's through volunteering or donating of money. Please email me at rhea.sunshine.pgh@gmail.com. That's my name, rhea.sunshine.pgh@gmail.com. Thank you very much. That's everything.
Thanks, Rhea. Anybody else?
Dan Showalter.
What's that echo? Okay, go ahead, Dan.
Hey, all, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, Dan Showalter, 440 North Avenue. I actually have very extensive experience with food trucks. I've worked multiple seasons with them. And just so you guys don't have to make a ton of phone calls, boroughs do have in a lot of their codes fees for food trucks, but nobody enforces it. The individual food trucks don't pay a fee. Businesses will pay a flat fee at the beginning of the season or for a year-round permit, but that's it. The only time a food truck will actually pay a fee is for like a food truck roundup. They have that down at the Meadows, and it's a $500 fee, but tens of thousands of people walk through the Meadows, so nobody cares about the $500 fee. So just letting you know that when it comes to the food trucks, it's generally the businesses are charged, and it's a nominal fee. So
The businesses will pay that one time, Dan,
they'll generally pay one time.
for all
Traditionally,
the trucks.
for all the trucks. It's a little odd nowadays because traditionally a food truck would run for 5 months and then they would all shut down for the winter. But with COVID this past year, everybody ran full season, and now everybody's running full season because it looks like you actually can make money. The general assumption was come winter, shut it down because nobody's going to be out. But that has proven wrong. So a lot of trucks are running season long. So maybe you would want to increase the fee a little bit because it's not seasonal anymore, it's year round. But again, it's nominal. You're talking about maybe a couple $100 for a year.
Mhm.
And it's only very select businesses. Basically, the people that get food trucks, as you can see here in Verona, it's your brew houses. We have a cider house, but that's where they go. And then like the occasional parking lot at like an Ambridge, Fix It Yourself or a Busy Beaver or something like that. So that's it. That's all I got.
Thanks,
Dan.
Thanks,
Dan.
Dan.
Yep, no problem.
Looks like Vince is up next. Go ahead, Vince.
Hello, can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Vince Flota, 323 Penn Street. I just have a comment to make about the pavilion at Cribs. Dave, you had spoken at a couple council meetings ago that you wanted to coordinate between RAA, LVAF, and the borough with getting things for the new building. Next Tuesday at 5:30, Parks and Rec is meeting with Matt Pitch for a walkthrough of the building. Would you mind reaching out to RAA and inviting them so that way we could have every party in one place at the same time and we could all discuss things then?
Yeah, Vince, did you say, so that'd be Tuesday the 3rd?
Yes, Tuesday at 5:30.
Tuesday, August at 5:30. Okay, I'll send an email to the contacts I have at RAA and I'll copy you and Matt. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine. We're
Okay.
gonna have that walkthrough, and I believe we're gonna have our Parks and Rec meeting directly after. So just to consolidate everything and get everybody on the same page and in the same building at one time would be great.
Okay. Great. Thanks, Vince.
No problem. That's all I had.
Vince, Matt said Wednesday.
No, Tuesday. I thought.
That was a miss. That was a typo. All right, that's it.
Okay, thank you, Vince. Anybody else?
Kim Roller.
Kim, yeah. Go ahead, Kim.
Hey guys, Kim Roller, 853 First Street. I was actually just confused about the purpose of the food truck fee and kind of where that came from. If historically we haven't enforced that or haven't done anything with that. I was just wondering if somebody could give some clarification as to why we are enforcing this now.
We aren't necessarily enforcing anything now. It was just something that was brought up for discussion because it's in what our current ordinance is. And like Dan said just a few minutes ago, a lot of places have, this is sort of like a standard food truck ordinance, but then it turns out that most communities don't collect the fee. It's really logistically impossible.
Okay, I appreciate the clarification. Thank you guys very much.
You're welcome. Anybody else? Going once, going twice. Motion to adjourn.
Make a motion.
Sylvia
I'll
and Ray,
second.
got it. All those in favor, please say aye. Okay, aye. We are adjourned at the,
Executive session.
and we are having, oh, yes, adjourn to exec session. Yes.
We don't need to come back
We do not need to come back
for personnel.
for personnel. Thank
Correct.
you.
Yep.
All right, I need a bio break.